Maverick News presents The Rick Walker Show. Defrag your mind.
Good evening, Maverick family. Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel. I'm Rick Walker. Welcome new viewers as well. Just signing on a little bit early. We weren't supposed to come on until 6 p.m. However, we do have a live feed coming out of Ottawa from the Canadian Aviation and Space Museum, where there is a panel discussion happening live right now. We're going to bring you the feed with the crew of the Artemis 2 mission. We have the Artemis 2 astronauts participating in this live panel discussion. And I know this is going to pain some of you, but the Prime Minister is there and he's participating in it as well. And we're going there live now. So that is why we are signing on just a little bit early. Here we go. Artemis 2 crew, welcome to Canada right now. Here we go. And we have other news lined up for you, of course, tonight as well. Leo is going to join us, but let's pick up this live feed, and we'll let some of this roll so that you can find out more about this.
Over 60 years that there's nothing we can't achieve when we work together as nations. With this in mind, Administrator Nelson and I are pleased to host this panel discussion together. Administrator Nelson.
It's significant that for the first time back to the moon in over a half century, that Canada is our international partner. Of the American crew, you see a sprinkling of America. And to be joined with our Canadian astronaut, Jeremy, this is a significant event for us to go all the way back to the moon. The first time we went, 1968, Christmas, we were orbiting the moon. It was a decision made at the very last, within 4 months, because Apollo 8 was not supposed to go to the moon. We were in a space race back then with the Soviet Union, and we made the bold decision, even though the rocket had not been fully tested. It was successful, and you know the result. But now, 50 years later, we go back, and I can tell you that rocket is fully tested. And that rocket was very successful. And so for the first time, we're going to put the crew on. We're going around the moon. They're going to check out all the systems, the life support systems. Then about a year after that, we're going to go into lunar polar elliptical orbit. And then rendezvous with a lander, and we will send 2 of the 4 astronauts to the surface, and it will be the first woman and the next man to walk on the moon. So, Lisa?
Thank you very much, Administrator. Prime Minister, in 2019, when we committed to providing Canadarm3 to the Lunar Gateway, did you envision that this would bring us here with a Canadian astronaut in the Artemis 2 crew?
Yes, because we made the commitment to continue to be part of this. I think a lot of people are suddenly realizing, oh my gosh, that's great that a Canadian is going to the moon. And is part of this first mission that gets back out there after 50 years. But it's not sort of a sudden decision. It's not something that happened overnight. Canada and the Canadian Space Agency has been an integral partner to NASA and to space missions over the past many, many decades. from, I mean, we talk about Canadarm3, but you know, Canadians, we're all very well trained. Whenever we see a picture of the space shuttle doing whatever it is the space shuttle does, we'd always look for, there's the Canadarm, there's the little Canadian flag on Canadarm, because that was our contribution to an extraordinarily important milestone that was the space shuttle. And then on the International Space Station, Canadarm2, which is up there right now, is an integral part of not just assembling, but operating, repairing, continuing the work that it's doing. So as we talked about the Lunar Gateway, it was absolutely logical that we be saying, yeah, Canada is going to be there with our robotics, with our robotic arm, with Canadarm3, with the extra twist that we're going to rely on AI because of the distance in terms of controlling. There's going to have to be a smarter Canadarm to do that, but Canada's a world leader in AI as well. So knowing that we are a really important key part of a much larger space program is a decision that successive generations of Canadian astronauts and space agencies and governments have taken. So this is a really big moment, but it's only one moment on a relationship that has lasted decades and that will continue to last for decades more as we go back to the moon and beyond altogether.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Jeremy, dear colleague, you will mark history by becoming the first Canadian to travel to the moon. How does it make you feel?
Have you figured out an answer to that question?
I have and I have not, and it's because I mean, I'm excited. For me personally, I mean, I've dreamt of this my whole life. I'm going to see the Earth from the perspective of the moon, and I just feel like I'm the luckiest human alive to get to go do this. But the bigger sentiment that I have, especially when I look at the faces in this audience, because I know a lot of you, and there's some that I haven't, but I also know that you've made significant contributions. It's like you were just saying, Prime Minister, this didn't happen this year or last year. It happened over decades. It's visionary, bold, brave Canadians, step by step, bringing us to this moment. And what I feel is like, yes, this is your chance to shine. You are on the world stage. You are being highlighted for the genius that Canada has, that Canadians have to bring to the international stage. Our American partners, great leaders, have recognized that, and they have lifted us up and welcomed us. Just truly put us in a position where we can spread our wings and soar all the way to the moon and onto Mars. And that's the sentiment of what I have been feeling since the announcement on April 3rd. It's immense Canadian pride and pride in the leadership, the global mindset leadership, that we can do big, bold things together.
All of you guys are role models. Victor, you are particularly a role model. And you all are making history going back to the moon after so long. Tell us about when kids look up at you, Victor, and they want to be you. That's a big responsibility.
Well, first, thank you for this amazing opportunity. Look up at this stage. We have the Prime Minister of Canada, the President of the Canadian Space Agency, and the Administrator of NASA, and we get to sit here and talk about this amazing journey that we're going to be a part of. And I hope that kids can focus on the moment and not the men and women that are the Artemis II crew. This is a journey and a relationship that had a lot of challenging things to overcome in the past, but it also has this bright and glorious future. It's going to continue. And so I hope they can see that big picture, but I hope they are as excited as we are about the right now, because we do have to celebrate the wins that this means. And I also think it's really important that those kids look up here and can see something that they can connect to. That is so important. Thank you, sir.
Reed, you're the commander. You're responsible. You're accountable. How do you keep all these folks in line?
I think they keep me in line. I think that's the way this works. I'm flying into space with the greatest that we have. We've got Jeremy, Christina, Victor. There's loads of experience. These are amazing people. But when we look to launch, we'll go through training flows, NASA, and we'll make sure that we're 100% ready. Lockheed Martin, Boeing, everybody will make sure we are ready to go. European service module built by Airbus, they'll make sure they're ready to go. But the thing that we have to do is make sure that we're ready to go. And that means fostering a relationship with everyone that has helped us get there, with mission control, with the contractors, and most importantly, with our families, making sure that we are all together on this mission. It is all of us, and we are going.
Lisa, it's over to you.
Thank you, Administrator. Christina, you hold the record for the longest single space flight by a woman with a total of 328 days in space. How will you approach this new adventure, and how do you think Artemis II will be remembered by future generations?
Well, thank you for that. It's such an honor to be here. Like Victor said, looking around this museum, what a testament to what we can do when we come together to do great things. You know, I approach this mission the way that we've been talking about as a crew, which is it's all about us enabling and making great the next missions that are coming after us. This is just the beginning of a long relay race, a sprint that's also a marathon when you put it all together. We're going to be going back to the moon, landing on it, staying sustainably, responsibly, taking what we learned there and exploring on to Mars. And being a part of that is just incredible. But you know, there are some metaphors from my time in space. When people used to ask me about the record, there were a couple things that I always used to remind myself of and said about it. One was, it's not how many days you have, it's what you do with each of those days. And in this case, we have 10 days to complete that mission that I just talked about. We're going to have to bring our best to every single day. They're going to be days full of communicating what we're seeing to the ground and remembering that mission. And the second thing I used to say about the record was my biggest hope for it is that it succeeded as soon as possible, because that means we're continuing to push the frontiers and the boundaries. And again, it's a metaphor for how I approach this mission. I can't wait for it to be eclipsed by landing on the moon, by building bases there and going on to Mars. And then the legacy of the mission. You know, we've been thinking about this as a crew, our own crew legacy, but I'm hardly qualified to talk about the mission's legacy. It really belongs to all of you, to the teams that we're a part of. But if I had to guess, and I think this resonates with everyone, I think it's pretty clear that it's going to be remembered for being international, for being a partnership. The people that saw the Apollo years couldn't even imagine this moment. And now the Artemis generation will think and know that this is how we do exploration. We do it together.
On June the 6th, I'm going to be on the beaches of Normandy for the celebration of when all the Allies came together. And I can't think of that without thinking that when the US hit the beaches, we also hit the beaches with the Canadians. And how we have been fast friends and allies over the years. Now we are going to sail on a cosmic sea to far distant cosmic shores. As Christina has said, we are going not just back to the moon, but to live and to learn, to invent, to create in order to go to Mars and then beyond. Prime Minister, what would you like to do with us as we do that?
We live in a challenging time right now. The realities of climate change, of pandemics we all just went through, that dealing with war returning to Europe, dealing with all sorts of different upheavals around the world are rightly a source of real anxiety for a whole bunch of people wondering where the future is going. And woven through that is everywhere the idea, well, you know what, in difficult times, you got to look out for number one. You got to look out for yourself, because if you're not taking care of yourself, maybe nobody else will. And that's a natural human tendency, but we know that it is likely to drive us all into the ditch if we all only focus on ourselves. And the symbol, not just of Canada and the United States working together on this one big thing, but on all the countries working together as they are. I mean, as Bill and I were talking earlier, in space is, despite all the tensions on Earth, one of the places where Russia remains a reasonably solid interlocutor and partner. That's a reminder that there are bigger things than what we are dealing with, as important as the things we are dealing with here on Earth. And even you talked about the space race. The idea of a space race has a winner and therefore some also-rans as well. And I think the legacy that we're starting here with Artemis 2 is no longer about the idea of a race with winners and people who come second and third. It's understanding that where we're going and where we need to go as people only happens if we're doing it together. And I think of all the different countries in the world, of all the different relationships between countries in the world, perhaps the strongest friendship out there is between Canada and the United States, and that we be setting the tone for doing this, something that hasn't been done in 50 years, and that we choose to be doing this together. I mean, for those of you who remember the late 60s and that moment when Neil Armstrong stepped onto the earth and how I wasn't there, you all watched it on grainy TVs. What generations are now, 50 years later, think about the advances in technology, the fact that the iPhones in our pockets have more computing power than anything that ever went to the moon 50 years ago. The way this mission is going to be able to pull people together and have them dream about an amazing future and have integral in that dream the idea that we do it with others who are different, who are from different countries in different places, but it's something we do together. That's the path to solution we need to be building for everything around the world. And the fact that we get to start this, do this together as this first step back to the moon, knowing that there will be so many more steps to come that we're going to remain steadfast on, is just unbelievably optimistic. And I can't do this without thinking of my kids, who one of them may be sitting on a stage like this in a blue suit one day, and I'd be incredibly proud. The number of kids who will dream of doing big things like this is going to do some really, really good things to the way people are thinking about the challenges we're facing right now.
Merci, Monsieur le Premier ministre. Le budget 2023 a confirmé 1,4 milliard de dollars pour l'exploration lunaire. Cet argent servira, entre autres, pour construire un véhicule utilitaire pour la Lune, à accélérer le développement de nouvelles technologies, quelques-uns qu'on a vus aujourd'hui, et soutenir la science lunaire canadienne. Qu'est-ce que ça représente, à votre avis, pour le Canada et le futur?
On sait à quel point les technologies de l'avenir sont en train d'être développées dans bien des différentes industries, que ce soit l'intelligence artificielle, les ordinateurs quantiques ou d'autres. Mais au niveau de la robotique, au niveau de pousser les limites de ce qu'on est en train de pouvoir faire, le fait que le Canada soit intégral à cette expérience, oui, avec nos expériences en robotique, mais d'autres, ça va avoir des impacts sur non seulement les technologies qu'on va utiliser dans les années à venir, mais aussi sur les plans de carrière de tellement de jeunes qui vont voir de devenir scientifiques, de devenir ingénieurs, d'être prêts à développer et inventer les technologies de l'avenir Ça va continuer de mettre de l'avant la science, les faits, les données, le travail que nous devons faire pour répondre aux défis que l'univers nous envoie. Et ça me rend extrêmement optimiste.
Merci beaucoup. Jeremy, Canada is known in particular for our leadership in space robotics, vision systems, VR immersive experiences, and SAR technologies. We're now leveraging our expertise in food production and healthcare delivery, such important issues here on Earth. How will these new technologies benefit people on Earth and also humans as we venture further into deep space?
Yeah, I find it really interesting when we start to think about going back to the moon for a sustainable presence on the moon and then onto Mars, that the problem sets start to overlap more than they did in the past with respect to getting to low Earth orbit. It now comes down to basic needs. We need a lot of basic needs infrastructure. We can't take everything with us to the moon. We certainly can't take everything with us to Mars. And so we need to start being able to grow food in space and sustain ourselves in space. If we can't grow food in the Canadian Arctic, how do we expect to be able to grow it on the moon or on Mars? And so there's this big overlap. It's the same with remote healthcare. And we envision, there's a lot of genius across the country within these areas, and there's real problems, and there's technology has changed to the point we could leverage that knowledge that's in our country already to solve it for the Arctic, for remote communities, and then take those solutions to the moon and take them to Mars with our international partners. And so there's just tremendous opportunity there. And so I think those like direct benefits will come back to Canadians. But I want to reflect back on something you said, Prime Minister, because it really resonates with me. And I think that is the ultimate reason, the ultimate benefits that will come from this is that inspiration you were talking about is for tackling global problems, we need global solutions. And that's a leadership aspect. And we're setting an example here in space, like you were saying, about demonstrating. My children are sitting in the audience. For young Canadians, we're demonstrating we really could all row in the same direction and tackle these big problems. We're giving you a very visible example of that in the space program today. And you talked about something else, Prime Minister, earlier that really resonated with me, and that is science and the importance of showing humanity that how we need to be on the same page with respect to scientific fact. Not that we don't have more to learn. We haven't figured it all out yet. We're going to have to change our minds. We're going to have to learn and adapt and constantly be growing and evolving our thoughts on things. But space demonstrates that importance of science. Space is not going to solve climate change for us, but it is a pillar of the solution. It can give us the data. If you want to take the heartbeat of the planet, the best place to take it from is space. And recently, Administrator, NASA, and CSA have partnered again in that area, bringing real facts back to the planet, a set of facts that we can all agree on. And so space will play an important role in fighting climate change and helping us with climate adaptation. We could go on for hours with respect to the benefits back to Canadians, but the important point is, and you said this earlier, we're just going to keep going, and we're just going to keep innovating with the minds that are in this audience, and just imagine the things we'll do.
And Jeremy, you made a point that a lot of people don't realize. They think of NASA as a space agency, which we are, but we're also a climate agency because all of those instruments up there that are trying to measure what's happening. Well, back to space, we're going to, on Artemis 4, we're going to take up the first component of a lunar mini space station. It won't be, it'll be more an outpost because it won't be populated the entire round the year. But Canada is not only going to participate with us with a Canadian arm that we looked at right over on the other side of this building, and it will be integral to the operation of Gateway, which is the name of the lunar space station. Canada will also participate with us on Gateway. Any thoughts for the future, Prime Minister?
There's lots to do, and lots of opportunities, and lots of challenges ahead. We have all these great plans mapped out for the coming years, but events are going to come by and we're going to have to adjust and make sure that we're really committed to this. But that's, I think you've seen it, in talking about this and the response that people are getting to this fact that we're going back to the moon, we're doing it together, and we're building this future this way, is really exciting. And Canada, as we have for decades, will be an integral part of the journey forward for NASA and for all of us. The guys were asking me earlier what why Canadians, Canadian astronauts and Canadian engineers are so integral to NASA, and why we've always done well as a small but mighty component in so many of the space programs. I shrugged and I said, obvious, winter. What do you mean, winter? Every Canadian scientist and engineer, no matter what kind of instrument you're building or whatever it is you're doing, knows a few months away, it's going to have to operate in some of the harshest environments available, imaginable. So Canadian engineers and scientists build in, as part of our DNA, nothing against scientists from Florida who, but we know winter is always on its way, and we're going to have to make sure that we're thriving through it and still performing through some very harsh conditions. So it's not something Canadian scientists have to learn or deliberately think about. We just know it's coming. And that mindset of building in redundancies has always been a characteristic of Canadian engineering and science, combined with the fact that winter means that no matter how tough you are, how strong you are, every now and then you're going to need help from a neighbor or a friend, whether it's boosting your car, whether it's making it through a long winter snowstorm in the countryside or wherever. And that sense of teamwork, of leaning on each other and preparing for the harshest conditions imaginable means that Canadians will always have a role to play, and Bill, we will always be there to play that role alongside the extraordinary folks of NASA.
What an amazing discussion with remarkable individuals. Thank you each for your leadership. As the world ushers in a new era of space exploration, each of you are playing a critical leadership role, and your contributions will endure. Thank you, Prime Minister, Administrator Nelson, Minister Champagne, and the Artemis II crew for joining us here today. Everyone, a round of applause.
There was a lot of Justin Trudeau talking. I would have liked to have heard more from the astronauts. He seemed to drone on for quite a while. He's not going to the moon. And they're leaving the stage. He sort of dominated the time, didn't he? I am disappointed. I was hoping to hear more from the astronauts. We did hear a little bit from them. The references to staying sustainably on the moon were interesting. I don't know what sustainability on the moon. The moon is a barren place. There's nothing there except rocks and moon dust. And they're going to fly there with an eye toward establishing moon bases where people can live on the moon and living there sustainably. What are you sustaining? You're not sustaining anything. You have to get into creating something, terraforming. And what are they going to try to put on the moon? And if they're talking about doing it in an environmentally responsible way, essentially. They're trying to apply this green political ideology to the moon, which is a barren, desolate place that has no oxygen, no life. It's lifeless. They're going to put life on it. They're going to change the moon. If you wanted to do what is environmentally responsible on the moon, it seems to me you would leave it the way it is. In fact, we don't even know what the consequences of trying to put life on a giant rock that circles around the Earth might end up being. I doubt it's going to have any impact on Earth other than the fact that they need to transport from Earth the things they need to sustain themselves to live on the moon. They're going to need oxygen. Where's that coming from? Earth. They're going to need water. Where's that coming from? Earth. There's no water up there. They have to take it from the Earth. Is that environmentally responsible to actually remove oxygen from our atmosphere on Earth and then transport it to the moon? It's the same thing on Mars, where you have to make it somehow, which means you need the elements. You need hydrogen, oxygen to make water. I'm not an official super duper scientist, but you have to take it from here to get it over there. You can't just make water on the moon. There's no hydrogen there. There's no oxygen there. I mean, we keep hearing these stories that, oh, I think we found some evidence of water on the moon, but there isn't any. Like, I haven't seen any real evidence of water on the moon. And if there is ice or some water there, it can't be very much. I don't even know if it would be water that you could use. Could you drink the water that's on the moon, or would it be contaminated with something? Could you purify it? I have no idea. I can't see there being that much water. There's no oxygen. It's either really super hot on the one side, or it's super duper cold on the other side where there's no light. The dark side of the moon, man. It's not like Earth. I understand why we want to go to the moon, and I understand why you might want to find a way to establish some sort of a base there so you could extract minerals to bring it back to Earth, maybe. I'm not even sure if that is environmentally responsible. What are the consequences of extracting large amounts of, say, minerals of some kind from the moon, transporting them to the Earth? What if it's some sort of energy source? What if they found oil on the moon, which they won't, because oil is an organic substance. It's from decaying organic matter. That's what oil comes from. Dead dinosaurs, decaying vegetable matter, and it's compacted underneath the Earth's crust, and it turns to goo. Basically, oil is just goo, decomposed goo from thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of years ago. And as things decompose and it turns to goo, that's oil. You don't have that on the moon unless they discover some lost alien dinosaur civilization that is buried under the crust of the moon. I don't know, man. A lot of this stuff, as far as establishing new colonies on other planets or on the moon, there's a lot involved there. I'm still inclined to say this. If they're so worried, they keep telling us that the Earth is, in peril, that climate change is the number one threat to humanity and the survival of the planet. The Earth is dying. There are too many people. It's overpopulated. There's too much carbon in the atmosphere. We're all dying. The moon is already dead. And they think they can bring that back to life. Or Elon Musk thinks that he can transport people to Mars, terraform it, turn that somehow into, people think that you can turn Mars into a habitable place to live. And people are like, yeah, let's move to Mars. You cannot live on Mars. It's a very hostile environment. You can't go, if you just walk around outside on Mars, you will die. But if they think they can do that on Mars, why can't we just fix whatever the problems are here? And yet they say we can't do it. Nope. You have to you can't drive your car, and you can't eat your meat because the planet's gonna die. Too many people, too much beef. Sorry. You're just gonna have to do with less, and maybe just do without, maybe have fewer people around. If they can terraform Mars, why can't they just terraform Earth? Or, more to the point, clean it up? What are you going to do? Transport entire oceans of water to Mars? Maybe I'm missing something. It seems insane to me. Little colony, maybe, like a base, like a building with a big bubble on it or something. I don't know. But like I've said before, I'm just waiting for the day when I'm an old man, already there, but anyway, older. When I'm an older man and they've got a base established on Mars, and Elon Musk has to hold a news conference because the bubble on the Mars base got a pinhole in it, and all the oxygen got sucked out, and people got pulled up against the plexiglass bubble, and their heads burst, and their brains turned to goo on the plexiglass bubble because all the oxygen was getting sucked out. Or on the moon. And I'm just holding a news conference to let you know that all the people on Mars died today because there was a pinhole in the bubble. Or I'm waiting for the news conference when they're saying, 50% of the Earth's atmosphere has now been removed because we've transferred it to Mars. I don't know of any other place to get the oxygen. It's like here. Why don't we just stay here? That's what I'm going to do. Not too interested in hopping on one of Elon's rockets. In fact, the one we just showed you last week, they had to blow it up. Just saying. Okay. It's an adventure going to the moon. Don't go away. The adventure continues when we come back.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom. Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
No, it was like last week. I told you guys that Joe Biden was likely going to announce officially his intention to run for re-election on Tuesday. Well, today is Tuesday. Guess what? He did it. You may not have noticed. Why? Mainstream media says it was a low-key announcement. Oh, it was that, all right. It certainly was. In fact, it was pretty much non-existent, which is fitting for Sleepy Joe, as former President Trump likes to refer to him. But what happened today, I think, is so reflective of everything going on right now. I saw mainstream media reports analyzing Joe Biden's announcement today, saying that it's very normal. This is actually a very, very normal occurrence. This is the normal way of announcing that you're going to run for re-election. Well, pretty much the announcement comes down to a video, a pre-produced slick little video presentation, which we have for you. I'm going to run it for you. Hang on a second here. Here we go. Okay. So he's posted this on his YouTube channel. I don't know. I hope we don't get a copyright strike for this, but that would be that would be par for the course these days for running this. But here's the video that President Biden released today. Hold on to your socks. This is powerful.
Freedom, personal freedom, is fundamental to who we are as Americans. There's nothing more important, nothing more sacred. That's been the work of my first term, to fight for our democracy. This shouldn't be a red or blue issue. To protect our rights, to make sure that everyone in this country is treated equally and that everyone is given a fair shot at making it. But you know, around the country, MAGA extremists are lining up to take on those bedrock freedoms, cutting Social Security that you paid for your entire life while cutting taxes for the very wealthy, dictating what healthcare decisions women can make, banning books, and telling people who they can love, all while making it more difficult for you to be able to vote. When I ran for president 4 years ago, I said we're in a battle for the soul of America, and we still are. The question we're facing is whether in the years ahead we have more freedom or less freedom, more rights or fewer. I know what I want the answer to be, and I think you do too. This is not a time to be complacent. That's why I'm running for re-election. Because I know America. I know we're good and decent people. I know we're still a country that believes in honesty and respect and treating each other with dignity. That we're a nation where we give hate no safe harbor. We believe that everyone is equal, that everyone should be given a fair shot to succeed in this country. Thank you for choosing us. Every generation of Americans has faced a moment when they have to defend democracy. Stand up for our personal freedom. Stand up for the right to vote and our civil rights. And this is our moment. We, the people, will not decide. So if you're with me, go to joebiden.com and sign up. Let's finish this job. I know we can. Because this is the United States of America. There's nothing, simply nothing we cannot do if we do it together.
What can I say about that? He wants to finish the job. Well, if that isn't enough to scare you, I don't know what is. What do we have? Gas just hit a new high, price of gas, inflation's out of control. We have a commercial real estate crisis blooming. The world is on the edge of nuclear holocaust because why? Oh, we're in the middle of World War III, which is being waged using a new form of warfare. The United States has military bases all over the globe, somewhere around 800 of them. The military is stretched beyond its capacity. It looks like we're going to probably go to war with China over Taiwan. Ukraine has been pretty much destroyed. People are still dying there. Looks like it's only a matter of time before they come for our sons and daughters to join in the battle over there, to fight a war that never had to be fought to begin with. But of course, Biden insisted, and Harris too, and all the warmongers. So they pushed NATO right up onto the doorstep of Russia and said, F you. Now we've got a real crisis on our hands over there. They're spending hundreds of billions of dollars on weapons, while the people in East Palestine get no help following that train derailment. You walk around on the streets of Detroit or New York City or any large American city, and you look at the homeless. And they tell us that this is all necessary to defend democracy, which sounds very much the same as the arguments that they used for Vietnam, where they said, we have to fight them over there so that the communists don't come over here. Better dead than red. And yet somehow I'm not as afraid of Xi Jinping in China as I am of Joe Biden. He wants to finish the job. He's well on his way. He's only had just over 2 years. Wow, what a track record. Oh my God. He wants 4 more years. And the mainstream media says this is all normal. This is more normal than somebody getting up and making great fanfare and having making a big deal out of announcing their intention to run for re-election as president. No, low key, that's normal. Just like his campaign to get elected was normal, where he basically sat in his basement. That was pretty normal. No, not. There's nothing normal about any of this, man. This can't be normal. If this is normal, I want to go back to weird, because this seems weird to me. All of this. In fact, I would say Joe Biden's entire presidency has been a freaking joke. Oh, he looks so energetic and it's upbeat music and it's a pre-produced. Yeah, you know why? Because the guy can barely put a sentence together without flubbing his lines when he's reading off a teleprompter. You have to nudge him every once in a while just to wake him up because he's so sleepy. The sleepy campaign launch for a sleepy guy. Suffering from some degree of senility, I would say. Oh, but it's all very normal, according to the mainstream media. I think it was ABC where I read that. They had analysis. Very insightful. Very helpful, to really, truly understand what Joe Biden is all about. The guy who is busy falling downstairs, and if he's not doing that, he's busy falling off a bike. But vote for him because, he's got to finish the job. Oh my God. And remember when he came to Canada to the same aviation and space museum where we just watched the Artemis II astronauts speaking? Well, when Justin Trudeau wasn't busy trying to steal the show. And when he was there, Biden, when he was visiting Canada, in his speech during the invitation-only dinner, said he referred to, what was it? He referred to, here, I can play you the clip. I've got it here. Hang on. I've got it. He applauds China. I mean our Canada. Here, hang on a second. Goodness. Here's the clip from Joe Biden when he was here in Canada.
So today, I applaud China for stepping up. I applaud Canada. You can tell what I'm thinking.
I don't want to know what you're thinking, man. If I climb inside that skull of yours, I may lose my mind. So no thanks. But that's just so typical of what his presidency has been like. It's a joke. It's a huge joke. It's actually, in my estimation, an insult to the intelligence of the American people. And yet somehow the guy got elected. And he wants 4 more years? Can the United States survive 4 more years of this? Remember the exit from Afghanistan? The sheer incompetence. Or was it intentional? Leaving all the weapons behind, all the armaments, the vehicles, the aircraft, the guns. We need gun control. And they leave mountains of guns in Afghanistan for people that are supposed to be the sworn enemies of the United States. What is wrong with this picture? There's nothing normal about this. Not really. I mean, it may be, it might be the current thing, but I don't think if you looked at the natural state of human affairs or what the natural state of humanity is supposed to be, I don't think this is it. It's not normal to have a president like that, a leader like that. Sorry. Just, this is abnormal. There's something abnormal about him, a lot that's abnormal about his presidency. There's a lot that was abnormal about today's announcement, his campaign launch. The guy wants to be president of the United States for 4 more years, and that's what you get, that video. too busy to show up. I just made a little video. So it's just watch this. And yeah, and then vote for me. I'll be surprised, honestly, if he makes it to the finish line and gets the nomination, let alone is elected for 4 more years. I could be wrong. It's possible. It's possible. And the people who are really in charge probably want that because, you know, he's just a figurehead, obviously. Somebody's pulling strings. Marionette. It's chilling. And in that video, he's trying to spin up hope or enthusiasm. And yet when I look around, all I'm seeing is death, inflation, rising debt, a country that's nearly bankrupt, a banking system that's in peril, deep trouble there, real estate tanking, fallout from the government's response to the pandemic taking a serious and heavy toll on the public. Nothing normal about this stuff. And I mean, the politics has shifted so much. The entire political environment is so unusual right now. There's nothing normal about the politics in the West at all right now, really. So much so that even Steve Bannon came out and said something that Lori and I were talking about here on the program the other night about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. She kind of threw it out there, didn't she? RFK could end up being Donald Trump's running mate. Wouldn't that be a weird turn of events? Steve Bannon even suggested that. I believe it was the War Room. I think that's where he said it on his show. Let me just see here. I think I've got an article queued up about that. Yeah, Steve Bannon. I mean, he's, yeah, here it is. I'll show it to you. If you're listening, don't worry. If you're just on the podcast, I will explain this. Here's the headline. And this is from a Political Signal. It says Steve Bannon drops big news about Trump's possible 2024 running mate. So, former White House strategist Steve Bannon revealed some intriguing details regarding former President Donald Trump's probable partner in 2024. Bannon suggested the 2020 Democratic presidential contender Robert F. Kennedy Jr. could serve as Trump's running mate during an episode of the War Room podcast. This was his exact quote on the matter, offering some compelling reason as to JFK Jr. could run alongside the former president. Here's the quotation. By the way, I just want to make an aside before I bring Derek Harvey in. When I did, and actually the article continues, I don't know if I'll have access to the rest of it. Here we go. Here it is. When I did Q&A, I did about an hour of Q&A. They had a little technical problem, but I did Q&A, Bannon said, which question and answer, which I think people were here. I want to make sure people understand this, Bannon said. Somebody asked about Robert F. Kennedy and the great speech at Hillsdale, which we covered here as well. His opening speech, and what did I think about his prospects? And I said, look, I'm a Kari Lake person, but if Kari Lake becomes governor, as she should if this court case, or if not, she runs for the Senate. If she's not available to be Trump's VP, that Bobby Kennedy would be, I think, be an excellent choice for President Trump to consider. There was a standing ovation, and this was a very hardcore MAGA war room posse crowd, he added. He goes on and says, I think that is a signal to the political elites in this country that something very different is going on. See, very different. And I thought it was quite extraordinary. Robert Kennedy Jr. has huge support for the American populist movement. Populist. I have been trying to drive that point home too, folks. It's not left and right. It's not conservatives versus liberals. The MAGA movement is a populist movement, and so too is Bobby Kennedy, regardless of the party label that is currently attached to him. Bannon goes on and says, look for the GOP elites to start their attacks on Bobby any day now. Bannon continued. He goes on. By the way, I just want to make an aside before I bring Derek Harvey in, blah, blah, blah. When I did Q&A, I did about an hour of Q&A, and I already read that part of the quote. And they're repeating this part of the article. I don't know how come they did that. It's a mistake on the article's part, the way they printed it up. Anyway, that's the point. That's how unusual things have become. There's great division within the Democratic Party. There is even great division within the Republican Party. But Trump had the foresight to realize that he really couldn't probably win the presidency if he went as a third party or an independent and ran. So he had to basically take over the Republican Party. Such is the case also on the Democratic side. I noticed so many similarities in RFK Jr.'s announcement and his strategy to run for the presidency. He clearly sees that the most likely path to victory means running as the nominee for the Democrats. You have to, in what has been a two-party system for over 250 some years, right? You have to pick a party. So if you want to win, you basically need the party machinery and that brand behind you. The likelihood of an independent winning isn't very high. But things are so weird. You see, we do have this big populist movement afoot right now. And that is always to some degree dysfunctional because you're attracting people from across the political spectrum, and it is certain issues that galvanize the support. But the populist movement is always based on the common man, the working class often, and it's civil liberties issues that are coming to bear right now, and the economy. Those are the two things that are bringing all of these people together. But it transcends party lines. And so Bannon is quite right. You could actually see a Trump RFK Jr. ticket if RFK Jr. is not successful. Isn't that weird? That's pretty weird. That's pretty weird. Biden's announcement today also extremely weird. As far as I'm concerned, it was weird. You think he would make a much bigger deal out of it, and yet it's all very, very low key. How can you be low key when you're trying to win an election to be president of the? Why would you want to? It doesn't make sense to me. But none of what's going on right now makes any darn sense. Stay with me. When we come back, Leo, Mouth of the South, is going to join us. We're going to talk about the federal workers' strike in Canada. I guess they've been out picketing. These federal workers have been picketing and blocking critical infrastructure. Well, who did that? Oh, yeah, the truckers who got in a lot of trouble for doing that. Oh, the truckers and was there new legislation passed to try to stop that from happening? Oh, yes, the government did that. But now it's federal workers doing it. And Leo and I are going to talk about how suddenly the approach seems to have changed just a little bit. Don't go away. Stay right there. We'll be right back.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News, the antivirus program for your mind.
Fear not the storm, for truth is on our side. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Hey there, how you doing?
Good, Rick. How are you? Can you see me all right?
I can, yes, I can.
Wow.
So, yeah,
We
I'm
got a lot
excited.
to talk about.
Yes, we do. I'm excited to have you on here because to me it's like it's galling. It's hypocrisy in motion. It is a double standard on full display. Here's some video from the Public Service Alliance of Canada's Facebook page tonight, and this is in Trois-Rivières, Quebec. This is just one place where workers were marching down the street.
Occupying the streets. Do they have a?
Yeah, good question. Do they have a permit for that?
Even a police escort. I love it.
Making a lot of noise, honking horns. Gotta be careful. Might get a big lawsuit.
How can you sleep at night?
I don't know, Leo. My goodness.
Wow.
This is going on all over the country. We are getting
Not true. It's not going on in Windsor. If it is, it's remotely.
Yeah.
It's from home. Keyboard warriors.
Yeah.
There's no protest here in Windsor. I had to block out my company name because you know what? I am on my lunch and I got a 1 hour lunch anyways. I'm non-union, by the way, but I grew up on union funds.
Yeah.
Okay, my father worked at Chrysler's for 35 years. My father-in-law, the same thing. Half this town grew up on either Ford, GM, or Chrysler money, which was controlled by the unions, right? So I do know a lot about the unions. I was once upon a time a union chairman for the local 195 here in Windsor. And it's funny that I say that because the plant that I work at now, right next door in 2005, I was the union chairman of that plant right next door to where I work right now, right? So I know the ins and the outs and the dirty moves that the unions make. I've been there, sat there in contracts and talked about all the crap that comes down the hill, right? Everybody wants something, right? It's not just the 13%. I'll tell you, it's not just the 13%. It's extra vacation pay. It's signing bonuses. It's all kinds of shit that's going to add up at the end of the day, right? To a lot more than 13%. Right.
It's infuriating to see that there is this level of, I guess, tolerance for this kind of these kind of demonstrations, though. And you know, the government is saying that they are monitoring for blockades of critical roads and infrastructure.
It's not tolerance, Rick. It's under our section in our Charter of Rights.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. What I'm saying, though, is, you know, I don't mean that I'm upset about them tolerating this. What I'm saying is it's a double standard that's being employed.
100%.
I can see.
Here's a double standard for you. I worked for a company. I'm not going to say the name. We were bought out by two different companies in the last 3 years, and all of them been multi-billion-dollar corporations from out of New York City. Okay, now we are one of the biggest tool shops in North America, maybe the world. Okay, we got plants in Alabama, Minnesota, Mexico. They just bought another 5 plants in this area, right? So we're pretty big, but we're non-union, and so now they're downsizing, right, and trying to bring everybody together in instead of 10 plants, trying to do it in 3 plants. So they're tapping people on the shoulder, and it's time for you to go. really, Rick. There's 25 people in the last week and a half that have been let go throughout this area that I know of. 4 in my plant where I work right now, right? And they're trying to make room for everybody. That's the excuse, right? But we don't have a union, so you can't dispute it. Yeah, you could take it to the labor board, and 10 years down the road, it might be settled, right? Or maybe they might be on strike too, the labor board, right? So there is a double standard, union and non-union. I personally, I don't need a union to keep my job. Okay, I told my boss, say, when the time comes and I get that tap on the shoulder, at least give me a 10-minute warning, okay? He says, why is that? I said, because the guy across the street wants to hire me and the guy next door wants to hire me. Okay, so I'm not worried about my job security is skilled trades, right? There's always a job for me in my trade, or I could just go off and start my own business, right? I'm ready to do that too. So, yeah, you got to be careful. You got to be careful with the unions because, I've seen in being on the inside of the union as a chairman, I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly, okay? And the unions protect the ugly. And I've seen the good. I've seen the good get the cuts because it's over seniority or whatever, right? It's not over who's the best worker, who performs the most, who's making the company money. That has nothing to do with it. At the end of the day, it's seniority, right? And that's another thing that they're fighting for here with this government strike is seniority and the right to work from home. And it's getting out of hand because if the government gives in to this, Rick, look out, folks. Okay, I see a national strike coming. And it's not just going to be union, it's going to be non-union. How can you have a 2-tier system because you're working for the government? You're special. Right now, you're very special because you get a lot more days off than I do. Okay, the federal holidays, you get them all off. I don't get Remembrance Day off. I don't get Family Day off. I got to substitute my Family Day for the civic holiday in August. Now, I don't want to have a family day in February because chances are you're not going out to the park or boating or barbecuing in February. I will be in August for the civic holiday, right? These guys get them all, plus more.
Yeah. Well, the government jobs have always in Canada paid generally higher than what you get in the private sector. And I think that's for obvious reasons. They don't need to be as efficient. It's not about that. But, the issue that's really front and center today with this, the hypocrisy that we're seeing, the double standard is the way that these picketers are walking down the street. They're engaging in these labor demonstrations.
I call it economic terrorism at its finest, okay? Because now they're starting to shut down the train stations, border crossings, okay? The infrastructure, they want to hit it economically. Now, if we would have said that when we were out having that thing called freedom protest, we would have been, what did he say we were? We were terrorists. We were misogynists.
That's right.
We were expialidocious. Instead, you got Jagmeet Singh out there shaking hands and standing up for the power of the unions.
That's right.
Okay,
and
it's wrong.
Hundreds of, I'm just checking notes here, and hundreds of public servants marched across the Portage Bridge between Ottawa and Gatineau. And that's where some of the biggest federal buildings are located. And they held up traffic while they were doing it. Now, if that's not blocking critical infrastructure, I don't know what is. And what is the government going to do about it in this case? If this was a bunch of truckers or people out there, shouting freedom, you'd have people in jail right now and probably charged with all kinds of everything from, mischief to, I don't know, treason. Whatever.
Making loud noises.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where's this injunction? I'd like to know where the injunction is. I'll tell you what, I know things have changed with the union since Buzz Hargrove days. Okay. And now we have Cassidy, who's running the 444 down here in Windsor, Ontario. We were on the bridge. He threatened to bring in 1,500 strong arm union workers to come down here, and was going to be like the gangs of New York with Leonardo DiCaprio. Heads are going to get smashed. I'll tell you what, Mr. Dave Cassidy, These unions try and close down the bridge. I'm going to bring 10,000 non-union workers down to the Ambassador Bridge. We're going to see what the fuck happens, okay? Because you're not playing with my economy now. We did it in the name of freedom, okay? You're doing it in the name of strong-arming us, the taxpayers, for more money.
Well, look at this, man. The escalation in this strike follows a promise by the president of the union, Chris Aylward, that
Right.
picket lines would move to more, in his words, strategic locations, which includes ports of entry, where the strike would have greater economic impact. He's just outright saying it, that they want to have an impact on the economy. And so on Monday here, they shut down the ports in Montreal, Vancouver, and St. John's. Now,
Well,
how is that fair?
it's not fair. And when Pat King said something along those lines, and the freedom fighters that were going on here, the real freedom fighters of Canada, what happened to them? They were locked, muzzled, no social media. There's still money withheld, bank accounts seized. Okay, and nothing's going to happen to these union guys. I don't think so. There's a lot more. They're going to piss off a lot more of the general population. They're going to find out who runs this damn country. Okay, if we stop producing, period. I mean, producing the carpenters, the welders, the machinists, the tool makers, you name it, the country folds.
You know, I'm not in favor of just ongoing, constant disruption, chaos. I don't like seeing people go out causing all kinds of trouble. But at the height of, the convoy, and then when we had the protest also going on down there in Windsor, which you were there to witness yourself, you were on site.
That I did.
I was saying at that time that, to me, that was like a labor dispute. That's how it should have been treated. The truckers, if you want to look at it from that perspective, the roadway is their place of employment. They, in my view, had every right to be picketing there. It was an appropriate place for them to picket, especially at the border, because they would normally be crossing the border. That was their place of employment. They were essentially doing what any union member during a strike would do when they're picketing outside a factory. For them, the Ambassador Bridge represents the equivalent of their factory or place of employment in a way. And so this is exactly what I'm talking about. Again, this is a clear demonstration of people exercising their right to demonstrate in that way. But it's like, for these guys, these people are not going to get arrested. Well, I shouldn't say not going to, but the consequences will not be nearly as severe for these guys as it was, I don't think, for the truckers and for the other demonstrators. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the government's attitude is changing.
Maybe I'm wrong, but if I do recall, there is a court injunction on the Ambassador Bridge still. So if they try and close down the borderway, okay, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Mm-hmm. Okay, open up a can of worms that they can't close, Rick. And it's going to be pretty. Like I said a couple weeks ago or 3 weeks ago about this strike, Windsor is going to be the key. Windsor, Sarnia, Niagara Falls are going to be the key points to this strike.
Well, in Ontario, the government passed Bill 100, which was, what do they call that? It was, the actual name of it is Keeping Ontario Open for Business Act. And with that, it was like, if the police even think you might be going someplace to block critical infrastructure for a protest, they can pull you over, confiscate your vehicle, all of this stuff.
Right.
And that's how far they've gone, and that is still in place, that legislation. But I don't see Doug Ford making use of that in this case. I can't see it happening.
Well, all that I could say is this, Rick, on the subject that the NDP, their constituents are supposedly the unions. Okay, they're the backing of the unions as the new Democratic Party of Canada, right?
It's supposed to be.
Singh's getting caught in the middle of this.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, one thing Singh does have, okay, and he could use it, and that is to call for an election, plain and simple. Okay. Will he go that far? I don't know. If I got to sit here and bullshit Mr. Singh and tell him please call for an election. I'm going to vote for you. Really, I am. I'm going to vote for you. I'm stabbing you in the back, period. Okay. You're a liberal. Okay. This is where we got to. If they give in to this, to these people, they're going to have to give in. Who's up in line next, Rick? Like we were talking the last couple of days. Who's next?
Well, in fact, here's Jagmeet Singh. He's saying he wants the prime minister to get directly involved.
Bonjour, good day. I'll begin with an opening and then I'll look forward to your questions. I want to start off by talking about the strike of the public sector workers. These are workers that are doing really important work in our communities. These are the workers that delivered historic support for Canadians when Canadians were struggling during the pandemic. These are workers that service buildings across our country. They're custodians, janitors. These are Coast Guards. These are firefighters. These are hardworking people. Their demand is very simple and very reasonable. They're saying that their salaries should match inflation, should follow inflation. And it's frankly something that I want for all workers across this country. Why is it that workers should accept less than salaries that keep up with inflation? If they don't keep up with inflation, they're actually getting a pay cut, and that's wrong. So we absolutely support these workers. But the problem is these workers have lost confidence in Minister Fortier. They're saying the minister is not present, is not being active on this file. It's taken 2 years. This is not a recent problem. It's been 2 years in the making. Government has not negotiated a good contract in 2 years. And so what we're calling for now is the prime minister needs to get involved. Where is the prime minister in this? One of the biggest strikes in our country's history. And where is the prime minister? The prime minister should be taking this seriously and personally. These are the workers that work for the prime minister. They work for the government. The prime minister often talks about the importance of workers. Well, where is he then?
I thought they were supposed to work for the people.
This is important. He thinks workers are serious. He takes workers seriously. He should be showing up, taking this matter seriously, getting personally involved, and finding a solution.
What do you think of that, Leo? What do you think? I can't hear you. I think you might be. Can you hear me, Leo? I don't think Leo can hear me. No, I can't hear you, Leo. There's no audio. We've lost your mic. You're not muted on this end. I don't know. Anyway, so Jagmeet Singh calling on Justin Trudeau, the prime minister, to get directly involved. I'm not sure if that's appropriate or not. I think you need the negotiators to kind of deal with this stuff. Yeah, still no audio, Leo. I can't. There's nothing coming through. Nothing. Sorry, sir. There's no audio. I can see you talking. I can see your lips moving, but nope. Maybe we'll get reconnected. And yes, so Jagmeet Singh kind of catering to the unions. Do we have audio now? No, I don't hear anything. But in reality today, I don't know that the NDP, the New Democratic Party of Canada, actually represents workers effectively anymore anyway. I would argue they really don't. In fact, if you see who really has been stepping up and making solid arguments on behalf of working class people, it has been the populists, and it has been actually the Conservative Party of Canada who has been championing those worker type causes. That's what I mean. Today, politics has shifted so much. The NDP in Canada has become more focused over the past, especially decade, on issues like immigration and LGBTQS plus rights, those kinds of issues. That's what the NDP has been more focused on. They still, by default, get, I think, the bulk of the union support, but because Canada has also slipped into this corporatocracy, this, I would say, fascistic form of economic governance, where you get the government and corporations working hand in hand, you're also seeing the unions in that mix too. And so these unions have been effectively being captured by the corporatocracy. And as a result, I think that they have lost their direction. They don't really represent workers in the way that they used to, not back in the day. It's the same thing in the US. The Democrats were always viewed as the party that, well, at least in my lifetime, the party that was aligned with labor, unions. And Biden still pays lip service to that. In reality, you've seen a lot of unions shift their support over to MAGA, not so much the Republican Party, but to the MAGA populist movement. And that's because in the US, it's the populist movement that, again, I think truly represents more effectively the working class. So it's this growing wave of populism that appeals on many levels to union members, not necessarily union leadership. And we saw that during the pandemic as well, where I think union leadership towed the line, did what the government wanted, regurgitated the government narrative on everything, and lent their voice and their power to making sure that all the government rules were followed. There we go. We've got some audio back now, or at least there's something there.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Technical difficulties.
Yes.
Shit happens. I had to take off the glasses, by the way. I forgot they were even on my face till I looked at the screen. But where were we, Rick?
Well, what did you think of Jagmeet Singh and calling for the prime minister to get directly involved in negotiations? He says, where's the PM? What do you think? Should Justin intervene in some fashion, or be more vocal about what's going on and apply pressure to get this thing settled personally?
Well, you are the leader of the country, right? Is that your job? I think it is. Okay, so even though Canada, they say we're not a corporation, we are a corporation. He's the acting CEO of this corporation, right? So it is his job to sit down in good faith. Okay, somebody's job anyways. But as for Jagmeet Singh, it's all political for him. Okay, as we've seen with the Freedom Convoy, if politicians came out to say anything to us, okay, they were ostracized in the House of Commons.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? For him to be out there, he's adding fuel to the fire. Okay, and it's going to turn into a big fire, because if you don't think these people are ready to go off, the whole country's ready to go off. Now, we don't have the money, not only to go to space, but we don't have the money to pay these people. Okay, where's the money? They cut the budget out already, right? So where's the money for this? Where's it going to come? Are we going to borrow it from Ukraine?
Good question.
Because this is the beginning, Rick. It's gonna end like this. Everybody wants 13%. We want, I want Remembrance Day off. I really do.
Yeah.
I deserve that day. That's the day our forefathers fell, okay, for this country.
Yep.
And me having relatives that are entrenched in the military, and my brother being in Afghanistan twice, Yugoslavia. He's a veteran, even though he's still serving. Okay, he's ready for retirement. I should be able to take that day off and go up to Angus, Ontario, where he's based outside of Camp Borden, and visit my brother on that day, right? Instead, no, I'm not a government official, so I can't have that day off, right? It's going to open up a can of worms for non-union joints, because if the government gives into this, man, you're going to have a lot of people that are in non-union places going, oh yeah, enough's enough.
Yeah.
Unions are not the same. They're not the same, Rick, as they were 40 years ago.
Okay? Oh, that's clear. Yeah.
It's all political now, right?
Yes.
As you see, nothing's going to happen to this Chris Alway or whatever his name is. The head of, But if it was me or you or anybody else, at the end of the day, we'd be locked, popped, and sealed, and designated a terrorist. No,
Yes.
they're going to go as far as shutting down borders, any infrastructure that economically is good for us is really good for them, because they're going to shut it down, and they have the keys to do so.
Yes. Well, when the convoy protest was happening, I viewed that very much like a labor dispute. It really was, because at the time, the main focus of the demonstrations was to end the mandates, and especially the mandates that affected the truckers' ability to work by crossing the border.
I've been to a lot of labor disputes in my life so far, Rick, and I'll tell you what, I disagree with you, okay, because it was more peaceful, the convoy. Okay,
I'm just saying there was a labor component to it.
Well, yes. Well, here's your labor component to it when they use the mandates. Okay, and it's funny we're on this topic anyways, because I watched a little bit of Rebel News today, and they were on it about Justin Trudeau saying that he never forced anybody to take this and take that.
Right. I've got that clip lined up for later, but yes.
Okay, and I thought that was pretty funny. Okay, because you know what, I'm not just getting my information from Maverick. Okay, Maverick's great source of information. I'm looking, I'm watching him, I'm taking it all in from everywhere, right? And he's a liar because he mandated it. Okay, yeah, he may not have forced people directly to do this. Okay, but guess what? If you don't take it, you lose your job, you lose your income, you lose this and that. This is crazier than a labor dispute.
Yeah.
Right? It was insane. They're lucky they still even have a border left, because in some countries, look at what's going on in France. Look what's going on in Italy. Look what's going on in Europe right now. Okay, man, they wouldn't have put up with this shit like this. But yet we're peaceful Canadians at heart, and that's a great thing about being a Canadian. Okay, but you can only kick somebody so hard while they're down. Okay, they're going to rise, and they're going to rise, and they're going to rise, and there's nothing you can do about it at the end of the day. You're head of the political office, the prime minister's office, ain't going to do shit. Okay, they're going to end up running with their tails between their legs at the end of this, because you know what? This might bring the people of Canada together, this strike. Okay, I may not be for it. Okay, and but when you look at everything else that they're fighting for, right? Who else is to join in? The freedom fighters, right?
I don't know, man. I understand why they're going after 13.5%. I just went to the grocery store a couple of days ago, and a lot of the stuff was over double the price. So inflation, I think, is actually much higher than even 13.5%. I think it's probably closer to 20, and in real terms.
Depending on what you buy. 2015, I bought a brand new diesel truck, Eco Diesel, beautiful truck. I still have it. I got a love affair with this truck, by the way, and I don't want to get rid of it, right? But the price of diesel in 2015 was 80 cents a liter. Okay, now it's $1.70.
Right.
That's over 110% markup on your diesel.
That's right.
In just a short period of time, Rick.
Yep.
Okay, and that's it, depending on what you buy. My wife did save me a ton on my car insurance today, by the way. She went to 7-Eleven, and they have these brown paper bags that are stapled. They're surprise bags. Okay, you don't know what's in them, but they're $5. So she said, "What the hell?" She bought one. She said, "Yeah, well, I never opened it. I want you to open it." I opened it. There's 3 sandwiches and an apple in it. Like, each sandwich is $6. Any other day of the week at 7-Eleven, I got 3 sandwiches and an apple today for $5. So, that was a good buy. But you're not seeing that in today's world, right?
Yeah.
There's a way around it all. Okay, there's a big way around it all. And you mentioned something that's sticking with me. And actually, I saved $1,000 last week by listening to you, by the way. I'm not eating out in restaurants anymore. Yeah, I got a wife, 3 kids, 3 dogs. It's expensive for food. I was spending probably $35,000 a year on fast food. Not just for me, but for everybody, right? That shit adds up fast. Well, I'm not eating out anymore. I'm not even going to the restaurant. I'm not supporting it. Okay. It's not that I can't afford it. I want to save money somehow, right? So you got to cut back on a lot of things, and the industry for the restaurants will be hurting, right? But what's going to happen is this: if everybody starts cutting back on certain things, they're going to have to start cutting the prices on certain things,
That's right.
right? So if you cut back on, unfortunately, fuel, they're going to have to cut the price of fuel. You're going to want to sell it. There's a shelf life on everything.
That is right.
Right. So especially when it comes to food, right? Nothing lasts forever. You know, those steaks. I think I was barbecuing on Sunday, and my wife went out to, where was it, Metro, $8.99 for strip loins. So she grabbed 24 of them, right? And I'm glad she did. But that is pretty pricey if you ask me. $8.99. If everybody just said, I'm going to stop eating steaks, guess what? The price of steak's going to go down. It's proven.
Yep. Yes.
So we're all in this together, Rick. Right? It's how you make the move, right? I hope they don't close that border down, because if they do, I want to see how this injunction and Mr. Mayor Drew Dilkins down here in Windsor tries and handles this, because there is an injunction, right? And if they don't do the same thing that they did to us, we got problems. It's a key to the system.
Yes, and my guess is that the local politicians, your member of provincial parliament, your member of parliament for the federal government, and your councillors, it's a labor town, so I don't see them coming out and being terribly critical either of anything that might happen at that border involving the Public Service Alliance of Canada. Not like they were with the truckers. Oh my goodness.
I could live anywhere in the world that I want. Okay, financially, if I liquidated everything, I could move anywhere in the world that I wish. And the guy asked me the other day, Leo, you're a community guy, and that I am. Okay, I could live anywhere in the world that I want, but I'm still living in the West End of Windsor where I was born. Okay, I'm not moving anywhere. I'm staying there. I love my community. I love the people that are around me. I know the mayor personally. I know Brian Massey personally, who's the federal MPP for the NDP, or federal MP. Okay, I know every politician in town, in city council personally, Rick. The chief of police, Jason Belair. I grew up with him. His dad was my plant biology teacher in high school. Okay, Sean McCurdy, the head of the police union here in Windsor, was my next door neighbor in Amherstburg growing up. Okay, so, I know these guys personally, right? So they're a little worrisome about what the mouth of the South's going to do next, right? But you know what? I'm just there to bring you guys a story. Okay. Like what I say, hate what I say. I don't really give a shit. Okay, my camera's rolling. I'm going to catch it all. So if they do close down that border, I'm taking a few days off of work because I'm entitled. I got vacation. I'm going to take some vacation time, and I'll be down there filming it. And my points, my views, right? You can have your own points, your own views. That's what makes life so special in this country, right? But I'm going to view it. I'm going to film it. I'm going to get some interviews from people because I know a lot of people in this town, right? I'm going to go right to the top and see what they're going to do about it.
If we do get some sort of demonstration or picket line set up down there affecting the border, it won't be the first time. There's a long history of labor disputes at the border crossing there in Windsor. Windsor has a long, rich history when it comes to labor disputes. It is a labor town, as I say it, as you well know.
Yeah, but we've never ever had one that lasted as long as the convoy did.
Yeah.
Okay, we had a trucker strike before. I think it was in '94 or '92. Somewhere I was part of that one too, right? That was a big one. But this one here that just passed, that was the icing on the cake, right? So who knows, right? With all the commerce going across the border, this man, oh man, especially with the trains. We never stopped the trains. We just stopped the bridge. We didn't stop the tunnel. Cars were still going through the tunnel. Okay, they were still diverting shit over to different border crossings, right? There wasn't that big of a disruption. But when you have all the border crossings and you have the train tunnel here in Windsor, goes underneath that Detroit River, okay, there's a lot of goods, a lot of goods. Anstey actually and me don't live very far from that train tunnel. And when the trains stop, that's when we're going to have problems, folks, because there's a lot of goods that are trucked over by trucks in that train.
We did see the Biden administration put pressure on the federal government during the freedom protests, both in Ottawa and at the border crossings, especially there in Windsor. They wanted that border reopened. They wanted to make sure the goods were flowing back and forth. It'll be interesting to see if there is pressure applied in the same way to keep the auto industry humming and other areas of the economy by keeping that border open if PSAC tries to shut that border down. But my guess is the Trudeau government will not get that involved in that. It's an Achilles heel for Trudeau. I think if he goes after the labor union with back to work legislation, or if he tries to intervene at the border, anything like that, I think it's a death sentence for him politically, because he needs the union support. He needs the NDP to support him. You know, he can't afford to play with that. I don't think, not at this point.
Well, it all depends how long this goes on. Okay, now if you're a union member, you're entitled to unemployment insurance and a thing called SUB, which is supplementary unemployment benefit, right?
Right.
So once the SUB runs out, you can't live on unemployment. I don't know what, it's been so long since I've collected unemployment. I don't even know what the maximum is. I think it might be $500 a week. Okay, unemployment. And they still tax you on top of that, by the way. That's not clear. So with their SUB and the unemployment, they're probably getting about $800 a week right now. Yeah, it's still tough to live on. But once that SUB runs out, that's when all shit's going to hit the fan. Now, I don't know how long that SUB runs for. It's 6 weeks, 7 weeks. It's not long, unless you're with the big three.
I did see some references to the workers potentially getting the equivalent of their full pay during at least a portion of this labor dispute, but I'm not exactly sure where all of that stands. It was a union official making those statements today, so they're not hurting too much right now. But you're quite right. If it drags on, that could change.
I'd like to know how many of these workers are from call centers in India that are working for the Canadian government that are not even on our shores. Okay, I'd like to know. You have to look into that one, Rick. Okay, because there's a lot of workers that are not even in Canada that are working for the Canadian government. Okay,
Yeah,
it's pretty sad what we're going to see. Will the government give in? I don't think they have the money. Personally, I do not. Where are you going to come up with this money? You're going to tax us again? Oh yeah, we'll give you the 13%, but we're going to add an extra 20% tax on something else.
well, they'll keep on printing, but then that's just like a tax anyway, because it just results in more inflation, and it's just a vicious cycle, and that's what they're in right now. That's why they have no room to maneuver. Inflation is hit such a high level that now these workers are demanding a really high wage increase, and they're saying we can't afford that. Well, you created the darn problem to begin with, Justin.
Well, what I think is very funny is the inflation thing, how here in North America, we're hit high with this inflation. But if you go look over in Russia, eggs are $1 a dozen. There's no inflation. Gas is actually cheaper than it was before the war even started. Okay, there's no inflation. So I think once the prices go up, you'll never see them come down, Rick. There's gouging. And I remember Mr. Ford actually saying that the price gougers out there will get you, and you'll go to court and you'll be fined if you're price gouging. And they're all price gouging now, and they're getting away with it. Right? So boycott, that's the only thing you can't do. Boycott something. It don't have to be everything. You can't boycott everything. But this week, let's boycott milk. Unless you have a baby, then you need the milk. But
it all fell apart, the whole plan.
Yeah,
Just because of people with babies.
Let's boycott rocket fuel so we can't get up to the moon and live.
Yeah, right. Oh
It's
my.
it's sickening where we're going in society. I don't know. Like I said, I'm getting my information from everywhere. After last night's episode, I don't know. I felt a little stupider than I did the day before with the three
Well-
genders. But that's a nice thing about your show, Rick. That's a nice thing about your show, and I love it. Was because the call-in is what really makes the show. And hey, any other guy would have said, "What'd you say? Three genders? Click, adios, amigos, gay. Yeah, we'll talk to you on another planet." Right? No, you let them go. You let them go. You let them go. And I'm just laughing in the background, going, "This is excellent." You know what I mean? So you don't discriminate, and that's a good thing. You don't discriminate, and people have a right to say what they want to say, and you could say it right here on this show, man. That's what makes this show remarkable.
Yeah. Well, the larger question is, are they going to have cows on the moon? And if they do, is the methane from their farts going to disrupt their sustainability plan? That's the question.
Hey, there's something on the moon that we don't know about, or we wouldn't be going there. There might be lithium, might be whatever. What's the moon made out of? What kind of is it made out of? Iron
Cheese.
ore?
It's made of cheese.
There you go.
Cheese.
Cheese. All I know is they better change the O-rings in this one because they said it's a challenge. Justin Trudeau said this, it's a challenge. And right away I said, yeah, like the Challenger.
Yeah, well.
Christine McAuliffe back in, when was that, 85, somewhere around there?
Yeah.
They sent up that Challenger. It blew up and our Canadian astronaut was dead. It was over a 50-cent O-ring.
Yeah.
I got rings here in my shop. Okay, they're not very expensive.
Yeah.
So, there's no reason why we should be on the moon unless there's something there that they want. Right? And it's not an electric spaceship. So how much carbon dioxide is this? Pardon me, carbon monoxide is this going off into the atmosphere? Right?
Yep. They don't seem to be too worried about all the fuel they burn for that, do they? But yeah, you can't drive your car.
We got 33% of this country living in poverty. Okay, and that's a high number, folks.
Yeah,
that's a third of this country living in poverty. Okay, people don't know where they're going to get their next meal from, but we're going to send people to the moon. We're going to send people to Mars. We're going to have a government strike. We all want more money. You got people living on welfare. Okay, yeah, I don't know how they're doing it. Okay, because welfare don't pay very much more than unemployment. Okay, but they're doing it, and I don't get it. Instead of spending that kind of money, invest it on the people. I'm not talking Volkswagen, $13 billion. That $13 billion they're giving to Volkswagen can wipe out a couple of big issues here in this country, and that's homeless, okay, and in poverty.
That's exactly right.
And I think that's more important than any electric vehicle, okay, or any of these subsidies that the government's given. It should be back to the people that need it, right? I don't know. I can't fathom, having grandkids. Even though my kids are already old enough to reproduce, they don't want to have kids. And I asked my daughters, my son, I said, "Why don't you want to have kids?" It's too expensive, Dad.
Yep.
So,
and speaking of that $13 billion, the Canadian Taxpayers Federation came out with sent out this mass email today. They sent it to me along with a bunch of other people, and they've got some interesting numbers in this correspondence where they're saying Justin Trudeau is giving your money to Volkswagen, which is what I've been saying too. He raised your taxes and now he's writing Volkswagen a $13 billion check. That's wrong, and you need to fight back. The government shouldn't give your tax dollars to any business, but the Volkswagen deal is especially bad. Trudeau gave Volkswagen $13 billion to build a $7 billion electric vehicle battery factory. Does giving a company $13 billion for a $7 billion factory sound like a good deal? The factory is supposed to create 3,000 jobs. That's a cost of $4 million for every job.
Right. Crazy. Oh,
Yes.
let's look at CBC. CBC gets what, 1.1 billion a year?
Yep.
Okay, so over 13 years, that's $14 billion, let's say. Okay. The average Canadian watching it, 78,000 people, Rick. That's $10,000 a year, or 12,000. I crunched the numbers the other day. It came out to over $12,000 per year per person that's watching the CBC.
Yep.
That's sickening. Sickening. Okay, when we have people starving in our country, like I said, people can't pay their rent. Shit, mortgages, good luck. Good luck to the next generation. If you don't win that thing called the lottery, you're screwed in this country, plain and simple. And people better get it together, because it's only going to get a lot worse before it gets a lot better. And I don't know how we're going to get to better. That's a scary thing about it. Very scary.
Yeah, Hyundai is building a battery plant as well, and I think they're doing it in Georgia, and their plant is a total of 7 billion. Like, and they're not getting the kind of handout that Justin Trudeau is giving Volkswagen.
They shouldn't. The government should not be involved in business, period. Like you said, the government should be involved in, controlling traffic, the roads, the police, the infrastructure of Canada. It is not your business to be in people's businesses. Now, I get it. If there's a bailout, an economic bailout that has to happen, and the economy is going to go down, let's help out the big three, but it's not going to be a free giveaway of cash. You're going to pay that money back.
Yeah.
If it's even if it's interest free, at least get us our principal back. That's our money.
It's the worst kind of deal. It's like they're giving Volkswagen basically pays about half of what the government puts in, so it's like a third of the total. It's like, and then Volkswagen owns it, but we pay for it. That doesn't make any sense to me. They might as well just nationalize it and just run it as a government facility then. Like,
that's communism.
That's exactly right. But this is worse than communism, because they invest the money and don't even own it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's worse than communism.
It's the worst.
Well, here you go. We're the richest country probably on the planet, one of them anyways, okay? Water's a huge resource. I think we're number 4, number 5 with the largest water deposits in the world. Okay, fresh water, that is, right? And we look at the government. If you want to get out of debt, they found diamonds up in Matheson, Ontario. I think it's Blackwater is the name of the creek, that town, anyways. Matheson. They found diamonds. We have the gold. We have the platinum. We have the lithium. We have it all. Get a government-funded business gold mine. Mine the gold. Pay off the debt. Simple. Pay the workers that work there.
There's no reason we shouldn't be just like everybody in this country should be awash in prosperity and a high standard of living, and yet we're not. We have everything going for us.
We should be eating lobsters, crab, steak, whatever, not craft dinner, peanut butter jam sandwiches. Don't get me wrong, I like peanut butter and jam sandwiches and sometimes craft dinner and pork and beans, but that's not my diet. Okay, my diet's lobster, steak, and I eat good, right? And everybody should be eating like me, period.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to choose. You shouldn't have to choose, period. And not in this country. We're the richest country in the world. We should not have the poverty that we have in this country. Some people's heads should be rolling down Parliament Hill.
Oh, yeah.
You know who they are. You know who they are. It's a big three. It's a big three. And I'm not going to leave Pierre Poilievre out of it because he's been complacent. Maybe he hasn't been complacent, but his party's been complacent over the years. Yeah. We didn't get here by just the Liberals. We got here by a 2-tiered system called the Liberals and the Conservatives. Yeah. Okay, and this has been going on for a long time. Yep. So you got the NDP, you got the Conservatives. Okay, they're all complacent in it, and their heads should be rolling. This strike that's going on, you know what? If they said, "Oh, Leo, the strike's going to go on, you're not going to get your $4,000, $4,300 income tax return back," keep it. If it really means that much to you, let's get to an election. I'll give you the $4,300 back. I want to vote Trudeau out, period, at all costs. Even if I got to pay that $4,300, keep it with your strike.
No question. The country needs change, man. It absolutely needs change.
It's sickening, Rick. It's sickening. You're retired, right?
Well, self-employed, retired, trying to survive in a semi-retirement. Yeah, but yeah, I'm working I'm working more now than I ever have in my life. But yeah.
Well, you have a gift, right? You got to. It's like you're a trade. Okay, so you're no different from a carpenter or a
I
mechanic.
practice my craft right here.
This is your craft, right? This is my craft here. You know, the government's craft has been crap. Okay, these guys, I don't know, man. It's all been the same shit over and over and over and over again. Okay, and I'm just sick and tired of it. Really, I am. We're very nice people here in Canada. You know, all we do is work and watch hockey, have the odd beer, Tim Hortons.
Yeah.
We don't give anybody any problems in the world. We don't personally. Our governments do. Okay.
Yeah.
We want to keep things simple here, but things are going to get very crazy. Like I said, you know what? I'm against this strike. Really, I am. But if it means a national strike where everybody goes off, union, non-union, you know, heads are going to turn. You're going to have Gretchen over there in Michigan, the governor of Michigan there. What's her first name? Greta
Whitmer.
Gretchen?
Yeah, Gretchen Whitmer, yeah.
Gretchen Whitmer. Okay, she's going to be crying foul. Okay, Joe Biden's going to try and stick his dumb ass into it, right? It's going to be political. Where's the money coming from is the key, because it starts with the 13%. Now, I'm going to have to look. They want all kinds of concessions. The concessions are the 13% is nothing. Look at the concessions they want, and then add up the concessions with the 13%. It's not going to fly, because who's next in line, Rick? The teachers union?
Oh, they'll be there. And hospital workers, and you know, the public sector in Canada is huge. These, you know, government employees, I don't know what percentage of the entire workforce it makes up, but it has to be probably 40, maybe 50% of the country.
100%. It's sickening. It's sickening, and you know what? They don't have the money. They might have the money to settle this one, but they're not going to have the money to settle the next 3 or 4 down the road, and that's coming. The writing's up all right. So the city of Windsor, yeah, they're going on strike. 13% plus all those concessions. We want it too. You know, the only way to do it is, you know, union bust. I don't know how they're going to do that one.
Well, you know what? Like there were contract negotiations with the General Motors, and this goes back a number of years ago now, probably 5 years, 6 years. Anyway, GM, they finally reached a settlement with the union, and the workers got what they were demanding. And this is here in Ontario, Canada, right? So this was for, you know, when General Motors this is before the plant in Oshawa was shut down and then reopened.
Yeah,
sort of
the trim plant here in Windsor.
No, this was in Oshawa, but
okay.
But yeah, the trim plant I think was probably involved in those negotiations too. But GM at that time put out this media release saying that they had come to an agreement and they're giving this wage increase. But in the same release, there was an interesting line in there. They basically said that in order to pay for it, they were going to have to go back to the government to get more government assistance to run the company, which just shows you that the whole thing is fake. The whole thing is a public partner, a public-private partnership. It's a corporatocracy. GM couldn't sustain things without government backing. The unions didn't care. They were asking for more than the company could really afford. And so the company made it clear that, yeah, we'll give you the money. And they signed on the bottom line, knowing full well that they could go back to the government and say, we need more assistance. And they were going to get it. And they did. That's where we're at. These companies are all on corporate welfare.
Right. Oh yeah. That's been going on forever.
Yeah.
Right. It's all about votes at the end of the day. Plain and simple. It's all political.
Yeah.
You know, Dave Cassidy here in Windsor, who runs the Chrysler CAW, whatever the or the UAW, CAW, 444. Okay. It's all political. You'll see him one week shaking hands with Justin Trudeau, and a week later he's shaking hands with the conservative leader. He's shaking hands with them all, right? So
Yeah, well, it
it's
used
all
to be the CAW. Now it's Unifor, right?
unicorn.
Unifor, yeah.
They could change their name all they want. They're economic terrorists at the least. Okay, these guys are going to go to extremes, and I've seen it. I've been on them strike lines where bricks were being fired over, scabs. Okay, your neck of the woods. Which truck company was that?
International.
Yeah.
Yep.
When they went down, they finally went down. They're out of business now, right?
Yep.
Okay, in that strike there, they were running people over with the buses.
Oh, I saw the guy who got run over by the security guard, who was, driving around patrolling, making, keeping an eye on them picketers, and yeah, that guy was run over. He's in a wheelchair now to this day.
Insane.
Yep.
Insane, man. Insane. So the longer it goes, the worse it's going to get for the Trudeau government.
Yep.
And maybe the NDP too.
Yeah, people pay a pretty high price sometimes to fight for things and fight for their rights and fight for higher wages. And that gentleman who was run over, I mean, his life changed that day forever, and not for the better.
It didn't.
Tragic story.
Right.
Yeah, I was there. Yeah.
He's not alone. That happens more than you think.
Yeah.
Okay, more than mainstream media writes about it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Even though it's a sensationalized story, anything to do with violence, mainstream media is all over it. They'd like to be, right, but you don't hear about it. It's like cover-ups, right? But I'm like a stalker sometimes, when it comes to these things, because I don't live far from the CRA building downtown Windsor, and I drive by there.
That's the Canada Revenue Agency, for people who don't know what CRA stands for.
And I drive by there because I know the strike's going on, and I'll drive by the border because I want to see if people are out, right? And there's nobody down here in these parts that I've seen yet. But that could change by the hour, right? I haven't seen anybody yet. So either they're all up in Ottawa, or they're working remotely, or they're in Toronto or the bigger cities, right? Maybe they'll get something going on here in Windsor. But that bridge is a strategic point in the tunnel. Now, if they manage to close both of them, the tunnel and the bridge, Houston, we have problems. We're going to have big problems.
And then that federal strike isn't just affecting Canadians, that affects our U.S. friends as well. So for all our American viewers and listeners, watch out. It could have an impact on the economy down there, because Canada and the U.S., we do huge trade together.
My life depends on it for work, okay, on the trade. Now, I don't know how in the hell they ever juggled that one when everybody was, what would we call it, lockdowns and all that crap that was happening, right? And a lot of people in the big three were down, and they couldn't have, at the same time was the chip controversy for the vehicles. There's no chips. I never went a second without work. I never went a second without overtime, Rick, and lots of it. Okay, the first year I think I made about $45,000 just in overtime, right? So I don't know where these vehicles were going, but nobody was working. Nobody was building them. They claimed they were building them, but storing all these vehicles away. So where are these 2020 models that didn't have the chips in 2021? Did they just crush them? Start over? We built all the tools. Like in my business, we're ahead of the industry by about 3 or 4 years. Okay, I'm building stuff for 2026. I don't even know what the hell it is for. It could be for the space shuttle that's going to the moon. I don't know, right? So we're ahead of the ball game. I get it, and we always have to be ahead of the ball game in this business, right? But they fell way behind, and I don't know how. So I don't know if they close down the borders economically. It's gonna hurt a lot of people. It might hurt me.
Yeah. Well, I want to play this clip of JT talking about the impact of the vaccines that you alluded to earlier. Do you still have time, or do you have to get back to work?
No, I got time, brother. I got time.
All right, let's bring this up. So this is JT.
I'm the boss of the bosses. I'm the boss of the bosses. Didn't John Gott say that? Boss of the
Yeah.
bosses.
So this is Justin Trudeau at the University of Ottawa speaking with this guy from Germany. And he's asked by a student about misinformation, disinformation. The conversation steers into the area of the vaccines. And this is now generating a lot of media attention.
Hello, my name is Julia Musa. I'm a second-year student at GISPIA. So my research will be looking at the Conservative Party of Canada and how they changed their political discourse at the time of the Freedom Convoy. So how we saw them speak differently about vaccines, about the pandemic and masking and other measures. So words are really important to me in terms of my research. I'll be looking at specific words. So today I want to ask you a question about the word misinformation. So the word misinformation or disinformation can be a loaded word, and it can also have multiple meanings. It became a popular word during the pandemic. It's used by both the right and the left. The concern is when this word is being used to discredit opposing views, which was amplified during the pandemic. It's been a word you've used many times, so how do you decide what's misinformation and when to use this word, since the word can encompass different ideas amongst Canadians?
Unlike all of you in this room, or most of you in this room, I never studied political science. I studied English literature. So words really matter to me. And you may call me old-fashioned, but I tend to defer to the actual definitions of words when I use them. And misinformation and disinformation, which you used a little interchangeably, are actually very different things. Disinformation is when things that are false, things that are untrue, are spread by people who don't know any better. Misinformation is a deliberate choice to spread and share falsehoods for a particular purpose, whether it's a personal purpose or a political purpose or a creating chaos purpose. Now, what can start as misinformation can quickly end up being amplified as disinformation. But the entire discourse has to ground itself in something, because you're absolutely right. Who decides what is misinformation and disinformation? Well, if someone looks outside and says it's a beautiful blue sky sunny day today, we would know that's wrong, because our experience here in Ottawa, our experience looking out the window tells us otherwise. But if someone says the earth is flat, you can see extensive YouTube pages devoted by people who've decided, and this is a recent phenomenon over the past decade or so, that the earth is flat, because their experience as they look out to the horizon is, boy, the earth sure looks flat. It can't just be about perception. You look on the Weather Channel, oh, it's raining in Ottawa. Okay, so it's not a blue sky sunny day. We have to agree that we're going to agree with the Weather Channel on this, or with the scientists from Environment Canada who are saying that it is sunny today in Ottawa, or it is rainy here today in Ottawa. There has to be an acceptance that there are experts out there that create a basis of fact that was built up on in generations to tell us that, you know, water is wet and it freezes at 0 degrees Celsius, and it, you know, there are scientific realities that have been proven and accepted. And the challenge that we have now is that increasingly misinformation and disinformation is carrying people to believe things that are untrue. And vaccinations is a perfect example of it. Like any modern bit of medical advancements, there are potential side effects in vaccinations. And there, you know, are people who've probably gotten very sick from vaccinations, on the billions of people who've been vaccinated against COVID over the past few years. There are far more people who obviously have died due to COVID, died from not getting vaccinated. And the idea that people can fly in the face of science, well, individuals are allowed to make their own choices. There may be all sorts of different reasons why someone is hesitant to get vaccinated. But I make a distinction, and I have always have, between someone choosing for personal reasons to choose not to get vaccinated and someone deliberately using misinformation to mislead and scare other people with so-called facts that aren't facts at all, that lead them to make a choice that endangers their lives and the lives of other citizens. So as Prime Minister, through the greatest public health crisis that we've faced in 100 years in this country, since the Spanish flu, my responsibility was to keep as many Canadians alive as possible. And all of the scientists and the medical experts and the researchers, not just in Canada, but around the world, understood that vaccination was going to be the way through this. And therefore, while not forcing anyone to get vaccinated, I chose to make sure that all the incentives and all the protections were there to encourage Canadians to get vaccinated. And that's exactly what they did. We got vaccinated to a higher level than just about any other of our peer countries. And that's why we had a less deadly pandemic than most other countries. Now, I see a lot of people nodding along with that.
Liar.
Boy, oh boy, you know, the comments section on the live stream right now is exploding with people who are in deep, deep disagreement with everything I just said.
No kidding.
And
That's
we have to figure out how to continue to protect those people, because my job as Prime Minister is to keep people alive and keep people safe and keep democracy going, whether or not they choose to believe that's what I'm doing or not. But this is a challenge that we've all faced throughout our democracies, and I know you guys had similar discourses in Germany around that. Of course.
Brutal, Rick. Brutal. That's disinformation at its finest. He's a liar. I could cut through all the bullshit that he just said. I can't believe what he just said.
And it's so crazy, Leo, that we have to be careful what we say, because we're on YouTube and Facebook, and he just said something that a while back probably would have gotten us banned.
100 get you banned right now.
Yeah.
Probably get you banned faster than it did a year ago.
Oh.
Well, you know what? I'd like to know what democracy has to do with 13 billion going to Germany, to a German company.
And he's sitting there saying he didn't force anybody. Don't think you're gonna get on a plane or a train
Or go to work.
Right. You don't deserve to have a job. But we're not forcing you. Oh,
You're a You're a racist. You're a misogynist. You're an expialidocious. The guy needs to go, and he needs to go very fast, right?
Oh yeah.
Unfortunately, like I said, if the strike, the union strike, if everybody joined in, it could be the end of his days in a hurry.
And to have him sit there and say, to admit now that that some people who got the Kool-Aid actually did get sick, and to sit there and say, well, with any experimental thing that's new, blah, 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 of course there are risks. Well, for crying out loud, if there's any risk at all, how dare you coerce at any level? How dare you?
I thank the conspiracy theorists out there, because they made the light of what's going on right now. And in the beginning, I even thought, oh, no, these guys are whack jobs. They're telling you that the Kool-Aid is going to kill you and this and that, and the Kool-Aid could do this and this and this and this. And I just thought, oh, these conspiracy theorists are whack jobs. In the end, they were fucking right, Rick. Right down to the T. Okay? Everything that they said was right. Okay? So I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and I don't believe in it. I don't believe in it, but they were right. They're not conspiracy theorists. These were a lot of people that were professional doctors, okay, uh, that knew. Now,
That's right.
the government paid off a lot of these scientists and doctors, plain and simple. They did, and they still have today, and they're still doing it today. Okay, to
Yeah,
keep
well,
their
we need
mouths.
to pull back a little bit. We're on the edge here.
Yeah,
Because it's YouTube, but this is just disgusting.
it is.
For him to sit there and now say this and act like, oh, he was so, like he was not forcing anyone that, they had to consider these. He wasn't considering anything. This
When
was
you
like
have
hard line.
what's scary is that it kind of reminds me of the J6, Tucker Carlson when he did. Okay, and he had the videos and everything else, right? Uh, we have videos of him calling us names. Okay, and
Yes.
then when he's in front of the inquiry, he said different. I never said that. Are you fucking joking me? Are we that stupid?
Yeah.
Are the people that stupid? Is there that many sheep in this country still? I hope there's not. Really, I don't.
And
Okay, my wife.
it's exactly because of this kind of stuff that so many people are so jacked up. I mean, so there's so much anger and division, polarization. People are divided, man. The country is on the edge, and it's because of this kind of crap.
It is 100%. It's I. My wife today said something pretty funny. We're talking about Joe Biden's reelection. She goes, "Fucking, you know what? You shouldn't be able to run for politics in the U.S. for the president if you're over 70 years old. Period." And she's more liberal than by far than a lot of people. And then she said, "Yeah, then you wind up like Canada, where we're going to wind up with this Justin. I'll call him. I won't even give him Justin Timberlake. Okay, Justin Timberlake's a nice guy compared to Justin Trudeau. Okay,
Yeah.
we're going to wind up with this guy for 30 years in office, and that can happen in Canada. We don't have a set term like the U.S. where you're done in 6 years or 8 years. Is it 2 terms? Up next,
Yep.
over here in Canada, we could wind up with a twit like this for 30 years in office.
Yes. Well, here's the current polling right now today. If there was an election, according to this poll on the 338 Canada, the Conservatives would win, but not by much. You'd get it's 35% for the Conservatives, 31% for the Liberals, 20% for the NDP, 7% for the Bloc Québécois, 4% for the Greens, and 3% for the People's Party of Canada. But again, it says here the People's Party of Canada wouldn't get any seats anyway. They wouldn't elect anyone. You might get 3 elected Greens. The Conservatives would have 138 seats. The Liberals 137 seats in the House of Commons. The Bloc 34. The NDP would actually be the 4th place party after they Bloc with 26. And you know what I could see even happening there, man? Is I could see a coalition government take form where they would kick the Conservatives out somehow with the NDP and the Liberals again.
Yeah, 100%. Right. Well, you will have nothing, and you will like it when you're eating out of garbage pails and sassel bins behind the Loblaws. Don't come crying to the mouth of the salt, okay? Because I'm set. Okay, it's too late. It's going to be too late for you. We tried. I tried opening a lot of people's eyes. They don't want to open it. At the end of the day, you've been duped. Okay, and I'm not so sure about the Conservative Party either, or these polls, right?
Yeah.
Who's paying for the polls? CBC poll takers? Give me a break.
I feel very empty politically right now. I don't know where to turn, who to vote for. Everybody's like, Pierre Poilievre, I think there was a thing on the website and he's WEF. I haven't seen evidence of it. I've checked some of it out. I haven't seen actual proof. I've looked at everything that's been thrown at me, and a lot has been thrown at me. But you know, even Maxime Bernier, that guy has actually been to Davos. He went. He's been there. So I mean, if you're worried about that, folks, everybody's hammering on Pierre Poilievre. For sure, Maxime Bernier has been 100%.
Like I said, we didn't get down this road by just the Liberal Party. Okay, we had
Right.
10 years of Stephen Harper. Okay, it's always been liberal, conservative, this country, and it takes two to tangle. This is what we have today, right? So if you're going to point fingers at one, you better point fingers at the other one too, right?
Yeah, you know, I don't know what the hell to do anymore, man. Like I've got a plan in my head, but it's not going to happen.
When I sit down every Sunday with my family, and it's my immediate family, my daughters and their boyfriends, and my dogs and my wife, and I do barbecue, you'd never hear anything about politics or religion in my house ever. We just don't talk about it at the dinner table. Okay, the woke society, I don't talk about it at the dinner table. Okay, the transgenders, any of that crap, I don't talk about any of that. It's peaceful, right? And my dad always said that you go to the bar, you have a beer, never talk about religion and never talk about politics at a bar, because you're going to wind up in a fist fight by the end of the night with somebody.
That's true.
Those are words of wisdom. And he had some other words of wisdom. If you're ever broke and you have no money to eat, pick up the ugliest girl in the bar, because by morning she'll have breakfast cooked and send you with a little bit of money in your pocket on your way, son. Those were words of wisdom from my late father. Very smart man. All right, so it is what it is. Yeah. Watch, we vote. I'm going to keep a very close eye on what happens down here with this strike, Rick, for not only you, for me, for everybody, right? If any shit happens down here and you know about it, contact me. I'll be on top of it. I'll be like Doug Ford would say what did he say? Like a fly on bear crap. That's something Doug Ford would say, right? I'll be on it, because I'm eager to see what's going to happen. How far will the strikers go? They're going to go. They're going to go the full distance. Will the government cave in? I don't know where the money's coming from.
Yeah.
They're going to borrow it from Volkswagen? They already gave it away.
They did indeed.
Right.
Indeed. Yeah.
So with that being said, Rick, I got to get down to how do you like them apples?
What kind of apple is that?
That's a red. What is it? Red Delicious.
Yep.
I think it is. And they have them on for $5 a bag, and there's like a dozen in a bag.
Yep.
At where'd she go? No Frills. I said there's a No Frills. I didn't even know there was a No Frills in Windsor. It's on the east side. She went to No Frills today, and they were $5 a bag, and that's a cheap price for apples.
It is.
Imagine that. Yeah, it's just under 50 cents per apple.
Well,
tomatoes. We got tomatoes. $1. This is in one of the big super chain stores. I bought 2 tomatoes. It cost me $3.70 for 2 tomatoes. I was barbecuing at work some burgers last week, and I got to have some tomatoes with my burgers, and that's what the cost was. And I couldn't believe my eyes when I paid for it. I went, "Are you joking me?"
Oh my God!
And we're in the tomato capital of the world.
That's right. Yeah. Leamington, Ontario.
Right. Nobody's getting any field tomatoes right now. It's all coming from the greenhouses, and that's they could say all the cost of shipping food. Leamington's only 25 minutes away. What's it going to cost you a little more to ship to Windsor? Are you joking me? It's sickening. Once the prices go up, they're never coming down unless you boycott one product at a time. Let it be Bud Light. We're going to see what happens with Bud Light. We know what's happening with Bud Light.
Well, I know they fired their ad executives.
Yeah, I think that's to get people to drink it. I think this is a wake-up call, and the boycott is that, right? It's a wake-up call to not force your bullshit down our throats anymore. We're done with it, right? So if it could happen to somebody like Budweiser, and Anheuser-Busch has been around a long time. They've been around since cowboy and Indian days. Okay?
Yeah, keep your social engineering out of your marketing.
100%, right? That's the key. So It is what it is. I'll keep you guys all informed with what's happening down here in the Windsor, Essex area. Rick's got the Chatham, Kent area, right? And I got the Windsor, Essex area. Stay tuned because it's going to get hairy. My prediction is it's going to get really hairy down here.
Well, we'll be watching closely. Thank you, Leo. It's been an honor, sir, to have you on the program tonight.
Always a pleasure. See, I don't even have to call in anymore. I'm on here so much. I think I'll let other people call in. I want to hear what you have to say. Donate to the station. Donate to Rick. He's paying out of his pocket. Okay, the T-shirts. Get a hold of Rick. Get a hold of me. I'll put you in touch with Rick. If you can't get a hold of Rick, let's get some T-shirts on people's backs so we can start paying for this channel. Because, like I said, Rick lets anybody call in, and I've heard them all, man. I've seen it all on this show, and that's what makes it unique. He's the only guy out there doing it. So support it, guys.
All right. Thanks, Leo. You have a great night, my friend.
You too.
All right. We're going to take a brief break. And when we come back, we will go to the phones. So don't go away. I shall return.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching. Fighting the Great Reset by leading the Great Resistance. Maverick News. The antivirus programs for your mind.
Okay, I am setting up the phone lines. If you would like to call in tonight, you can do so by calling this number.
Join the conversation. Call 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975. Free. Speak up. Speak out. Make your voice heard. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom by defending your right to free speech. Be a Maverick. Join us.
Okay, I'm back, and you can support the channel by donating at maverickdonations.com, which takes you to the Give, Send, Go page, or you can support us at freedomreporters.com. That URL takes you straight to our PayPal donation page. Thank you, everybody that has donated in the past. Right now, you're the only support we have, and that's kind of been the way it's always been. No ad revenue at all from YouTube anymore. They have decided to yank that. We were getting a little bit for a little while, and now that's been suspended. So adios, muchachos. No dineros from YouTube anymore. There was a little bit coming in there to help, but it's really up to us to make this whole thing work. So yeah, freedomreporters.com. Also, you can support us by just liking, sharing, subscribing, ring the notification bell on YouTube, and please consider subscribing over on Rumble. We're growing over there. We're getting a lot of traction. We're actually generating some pretty, encouraging numbers now, finally, with the audience over on Rumble. So real momentum there. Also on Facebook and Twitter and Gab and Clouthub and all these other platforms as well. And we're on the podcast circuit now, and we're been picked up by a Roku channel. I don't even know exactly where on Roku it's being broadcast, but it's on some sort of a channel that runs a lot of freedom-oriented programming with other channels like this one. So we're on there. But that just gives us more distribution. So thank you, everyone who's watching, and thank you for the support that you've given. And to those of you who may donate tonight, thank you. Really appreciate the support there too. Now, if you want to call in, the number is 1-833-975-3733, 1-833-975-3733. That's the number to phone in and join the conversation here this evening on the Maverick News Channel. So we can talk about Joe Biden. We can talk about his sleepy campaign launch. We can talk about the federal strike in Canada. We can talk about RFK Jr. And I should also mention, because I promised I would do this, Lori has her poll continuing over on Twitter. So if you go check out her Twitter page, you can answer the poll. Who would you vote for? RFK Jr., Joe Biden, Donald Trump, or other? She is conducting that poll on Twitter, and I guess they're actually counting the votes again, finally. So whatever the problems were there before, I do not know. She's not sure either. It was just a pretty weird situation where the numbers sort of stalled midstream. They stopped counting. Even though people were voting, it wasn't counting their votes the last time around. So she's running the poll again, and I guess RFK Jr. is running away with it. Also, she tells me that she has a new show. I'm not going to give away all the details, but she has a new show on another YouTube channel with some pretty big names in the streaming world and the social media influencer world when it comes to politics. So that sounds pretty exciting. She has a new project that she's working on. And when we have the details, I'll tell you about it. And maybe even better, maybe we'll bring Lori on and she can tell you all about that herself. And we can give her a plug. So here's Steve. Let's go to the phones and say hello to Steve. Hi, Steve. How are you?
Hey, Rick. How's it going?
Excellent. What's up?
I have to admit, I'm sorry. I missed a good portion of your show. I got called out for a few minutes. So I saw the first 45 minutes and then probably the last 30 minutes there with Leo. Mm-hmm. But I saw the part with Trudeau, and I am just, what's with this space thing? I mean,
yeah, you walk, I walk, when I go to Ottawa, I go over to the McDonald's across from the Rideau Center, and there are homeless people sitting right there on the street. And you can look up and you can see the tops of the Parliament buildings not far from there, right? And I'm like, how can this be? And now we're spending money to send people to the moon. We're spending money to send bombs and armored vehicles to Ukraine. And people are living on the street outside the McDonald's in Ottawa, the nation's capital.
That's where I went with it as well. You're still there? I think you broke up on me.
Yeah, no, I'm here. Are you there?
Yeah, I think there was some interference with my phone. Believe it or not, I'm right in the center of a city, and when it comes to my cell phone, I can't get reception at the house anymore. So I use the house line, but every once in a while I get interference on it as well.
What city are you
Well,
in?
yeah, I'm in Barrie.
Okay.
And actually, just I don't know, kilometer and a half away, there's.
Yeah, you just cut out right.
Notice
You just completely cut out right there.
That's really weird.
It's terrible.
Normally I don't have a problem with the house line too much. It just doesn't sound as nice. But there's an apartment building, probably a 10-story one, about a kilometer and a half away, and they have all kinds of stuff on top of that for communications. You'd think I'd have really good reception, but I mean, most of the time I can't make a phone call on my cell phone, and with text, like it'll just sit there saying sending for 20 minutes sometimes before it actually goes. I'm over by like the college and the hospital even, and it's just really bizarre. It hasn't done me any good, this 5G, I'll tell you that.
Well, you know, Canadians pay among the highest cell phone rates in the world.
Yep.
And for that, again, something's not right.
Yeah. Well, I think this space thing is just going to be another big grift. That's kind of what I thought while he was talking about it. And when he's talking about, well, I'm with you and Leo about how you feel about him talking about the thing.
Yeah.
I just flabbergasted, and I saw Dan Dix. He did a report on that. I just saw that at dinner time, and he nailed it. He's got his old clips and he pairs it up with Trudeau's speech, and it just, the man, he just drives me nuts. I can't survive him much longer. I don't know what to do about this.
Worst prime minister in Canadian history, period. Not even close. Nobody comes close. He's the worst. By far.
Yeah, no doubt.
If for no other reason, just
No
the way
doubt.
he's left everyone so divided. And, you know, the whole country's on the edge. Terrible leader. Terrible. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm sticking to it.
I think Ottawa is just a big grift now, and I don't understand how they get away with all that they get away with. And how many scandals is it? 5 confirmed scandals, pretty much. 3 he was convicted of, and now the China swindle.
Yeah. The blackface thing, the SNC Lavalin scandal, the vacations, the lavish lifestyle. Oh my goodness. For crying out loud.
Yeah.
And people keep voting for him.
Said 5. Exactly. I'm sure that when I say 5, I'm way short. I was just thinking that there were 3 that he was, well, I don't even know if the word's convicted or whatever, found to be
by the ethics
disrepute.
commissioner, they found that he acted improperly, but there was never any real consequence for anything that he's ever done. He just keeps on merrily being the PM and changing his socks day to day to something fancier every day. And the people just keep on voting for him because you know what it is, man? It's like he buys the votes with our tax dollars. It's federal workers who vote for him. It's CBC employees that vote for him because he's not going to defund them. It's just the average taxpayer who votes for him because he tells people things like, well, you know, the HST, the harmonized sales tax, actually puts more money in your pocket. When we tax you, we're actually giving you money. And people go, oh, that sounds really good. No, it's a lie. Not true. He taxes it here, and then he gives you some back with the other hand, but it's never as much he actually takes. It's a lie. Overall, it's a lie, but people still vote for it because they don't understand.
Yeah, it's so true that when he said about the 600 million, of course, CBC gives me good coverage because I give them $600 million. And he said that a couple of times. And nobody believes me. I always have to find the video and show it to them, and then they're astonished. Like, he actually did say that. I was like, yeah, he's just a grifter, and he knows how to get his votes. Like you said, he knows how to pay for them, and it's just different than actually handing them the cash. He does it through his means.
Yep.
And I saw news at 5:30 there, and he was talking about Joe Biden and saying that the world needs a Joe Biden. I'm happy that he's going to run again. And I was astonished. I'm like, there's no way he'll get this out of his mouth. There's no way he'll be able to endorse Joe Biden. But yep, he's fine and dandy with saying stuff like that. It just, I don't know.
No, the
I used to think
the world cannot afford a Joe Biden. We've already paid a price that is far too high, and I went on about that earlier. Again, they both have to go as far as I'm concerned, and the sooner the better.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm like yourself, I puzzle about who to vote for next. I mean, for me, the only possible remedy is Maxime. I know that, like you said, he's been to the WEF. For some reason, it doesn't bother me. And even if Polyev, I know he denies anything to do with it, but even if he had been there, as long as they own it, and I mean, there are people that do all kinds of things and try it out, realize not a part of that, and they want to be separate from it. And I get that impression from Maxime. He doesn't seem like the type of guy that's lying. And I didn't like Maxime. Years ago, I couldn't stand him. But he's grown on me over the years, and I don't know. He's the only politician out of a couple others, like Rick Hillier and
Randy Hillier, yeah.
Oh, sorry, Randy Hillier, yes. And Rick, who's the Rick? There's a Rick as well
Rick
that
Nichols
I like.
And Derek Sloan.
Exactly.
Yeah, those guys. Yeah.
Even Derek, I'm unsure about. He's okay.
Weirdness around him right now. He had that Ontario party, and then apparently they didn't file the right paperwork, so now the party has been deregistered. So the Ontario party doesn't exist, and yet I still get emails from him, like these mass emails where they raise funds. I don't get it. I don't understand what the heck is going on with him or his party or anything else around that guy right now. I don't get it. I don't know. I always kind of liked him, but I don't understand what's happening with him.
Yeah, I saw an interview.
Eventually started the party. Now the party's, he couldn't. What, you can't get your paperwork straight for your political party, so it gets dissolved, or maybe he wanted it, or maybe I don't know. Do you know anything about it? Have you heard anything?
No, I really don't. I certainly didn't know that his party dissolved. I remember I saw an interview with him at his farmhouse, I guess it is, or he was at a farmhouse. And there's a few things he said in that made me feel very uncomfortable. It was about a year ago. And I thought, I don't know that this Derek is who I thought he was over the past, because I didn't know about him until, I don't know, he started speaking out about the convoy and the vaccine before that. And then when he started, it was right when he started his party, I heard this interview, and there's just a few things I thought, that doesn't add up in my head. I don't like that. And I kind of stopped following him as much. But no, I don't really know a lot about him. And I don't know, he seemed kind of like a politician again to me, and I didn't like that.
Well, he's definitely a politician. And you get in Ontario, you have Jim Carahalios with the New Blue Party, and he's been far more consistent. I think in that regard, I think he has more credibility. He certainly does with me at this point. The New Blue, I think, is they seem to have their act together a lot more. So we'll see where they go too, but that's a conservative alternative just in the province of Ontario, though.
Right. Yeah.
So I'd like to get him back on here to talk. Actually, he was on the show a couple of times. I'd like to have him back on.
Yeah, I vaguely remember. Actually, that brings me up to a question about Miss Steubenville there. I can't remember her first name.
Rhonda. Yep.
Rhonda. So you said they're going to revisit that in the fall?
In September. Yes.
So how does that work from there? I got kind of confused in the end.
Okay,
I got
so
distracted as well. But
this was the great
listening to
flag
those.
debate last night, where she says, for people who aren't up to speed, Rhonda ran for the New Blue Party, lost in my hometown, and then she ran for municipal council. She's a councillor now. She introduced a motion in council where she was calling for putting an end to the raising of special interest group flags outside government buildings, like LGBTQS plus flags or any community group, really. And that's because some groups have been excluded, not allowed to fly their flags. So she said, well, if you can't provide equal treatment, then we shouldn't do it at all. Her motion was defeated, but there was an alternative motion, an amended motion that was adopted as a draft. And that was basically to kick it back to the administration, which was going to come up with a different policy, which is going to put the issue of whether like right now, if you want to have your special group flag raised to raise awareness at the municipal building, it's up to the administration through the mayor's office to just make a decision. It's not made by council. This new draft motion proposes that the council, the elected members of council, will deal with the issue on an ongoing basis moving forward. But there's a whole new policy that will be drafted, and now that's going to move forward. But they'll give administration the summer to look at the issue, and then it will come back before council September, and they'll vote on it again or re-examine it, debate it. There will probably be deputations where the public can speak to it again. And then council will vote on it again. And it will either be approved or it will be completely rejected and the status quo will remain in place, or it will be revised in some fashion. And who knows? It's just going to be dealt with again in September. And we may get a decision. We may get a deferral. Who knows what you'll get in September. But it's still in process now. So that's what happened last night with that.
Good for her. She seems to be making some headway then.
Yeah, I think so.
When I saw
it was defeated, but she doesn't consider it a defeat because at least there's, I guess at least now as community groups come forward, the elected members of council who represent the people will get to decide. It's not essentially the local form of, if you want to call it the deep state, it's the administration. They don't get to have all the power anymore.
Well, that's somewhat promising. When I saw the votes, I was kind of concerned. I felt like I didn't like what I saw when it was 12-5 or whatever, but at least it hasn't been completely dismissed, and maybe she'll luck out in the fall then.
Well, what was more disturbing was what happened at the beginning of the council meeting. She walked in there, sat down in her chair, and on her desk in front of her was this card that had been mailed to her from the Satanic Temple. And someone had made a donation in her name to the Satanic Temple, to mock her essentially and to, I think, insult her and serve as an affront to her faith, her Christian faith. And it makes a statement in there that because of her donation, the abortion clinic that they run as part of the Satanic Temple is going to be able to continue its operations. It was just really distasteful and disgusting. And that's because, of course, it really became an LGBTQS plus issue at the center of it, because, of course, that's one of the flags that they raise in front of the municipal building, right? So that's what they were trying to make it out to be. But she was not saying don't raise that flag. It's just that if you can't raise all of them, then you shouldn't raise any of them. If you're going to say no to, say, churches who want to raise their flags, then you shouldn't be saying yes to any other group. She's just calling for equal treatment.
Yeah, I mean, that's such an underhanded move. And the statement that makes, Rick, is so much more than, like you said, now they can say that she's made this donation and supports them and abortion and all these things. But it also says, we know who you are. We know where you work. We have an eye on you. We know what you're up to. It just says so much more. It is such a form of intimidation.
Yeah.
And in one way, if they were paying attention and watching her, at least now she knows, as opposed to not knowing that they've been following what she's up to. But I pray for that woman that that Rhonda is able to, take care of herself and stay safe and proceed forward, because she's doing great work by all the things that you say.
I think so. Courageous.
Well, my thoughts.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very courageous. You're right. Yeah. So I wish her very well. I feel like I'm taking up a lot of your time. Do you have people in the queue there?
Yep. I've got a call here. Somebody's trying to call me. Well, I can take the call right now. Sorry. I'm on the air, folks. Don't call me when I'm on the air, because I can't do that. But yeah. So I've got somebody else in the queue, so we should move on. I really appreciate the call. It's been a great conversation as always, Steve.
All right. Thanks, Rick. Appreciate your time as always, too. Have a good night.
You too. See you. Bye for now. Okay. Is this Raphael?
Yes, Mr. Rick.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Rick, I have a question for you. I'm 55 years old, and I'm going to ask you a question. I mean, do these people, like the government people, do they think like we have a brain, like we can think? Like, explain to me, that thing that NATO, they said they're going to bring all their ships to fight China. So how are you going to bring almost 6,000 ships all the way around Africa, Asia, to find your way to the Chinese Sea? So where are you going to park these boats? So what's going to be the logistics? And we said we care about the environment. So when you have the Chinese Sea, I did some research. That's like 1 million miles square of superficie. So where you gonna put all these ships? What's gonna happen to the fish? I mean, don't these people care about the environment? And that's the reason why they want to put that one world, that one government to manage all these things. So the environment in that situation doesn't mean anything. And is China gonna just stand still and let you bring that caravan of ships around? That means I'm asking myself, and the media, if I can see that myself, and the media, how come nobody is asking those questions? And I went deeper. The depth of that ocean, the Chinese Sea, is like 1,200 feet. So it's not deep. So that means the bottom of that thing is they got the Chinese and the Russian. And one side is China, Russia, and North Korea. So you have the other side where you can deal with. So the Chinese on their side, the Russian and the North Korean. So those ships gonna park there, and what's happening? I mean, is there a time where the other side, the other people, is something gonna happen to them like in Matrix, where they go gaga, where they only you can come and they're not gonna be able to do anything? And it's not like you can bring submarines, because 1,000 feet, I guarantee you there's all kind of sensor, all kind of things that can locate everything you have underneath. So you cannot bring your submarine. So, and the Chinese already, the one time you try to bring a submarine down there, they hit it. They hit it with something. I mean, the media didn't make a big deal, but everybody knew they damaged the submarine. So I'm just sitting there and I'm saying, like, what am I missing? What we got wrong? What is happening? I will let you listen. I will let you give me a few answers.
I'm not exactly sure what the question was out of all that. What is it specifically you were asking me?
My question is, what do they take? I mean, if you're gonna bring 6,000 ships in that area, to fight China. That's why it's gonna take. Where you gonna park those ships? That means the China Sea is not like the Atlantic Ocean. You have to come to to fight China. We have to come to the Chinese Sea. The Chinese Sea is not like open sea. One side, if you look at the logistics, the map, one side of the is only 1 million square miles, and the depth is only 1,000 feet. All right, and one side of it is Russia, China, North Korea. The other side is when you have Japan, you have those things. So how are you gonna protect those ships? Where you gonna park them? Because if NATO come with all their ships, where you gonna park them and how you gonna to protect them? It's not making sense. The logistics, nothing makes sense. Because and then what's gonna happen? Do you think China? Okay, one time we have those 3 caravans where the Catholic Church left Europe and come to fight the Middle East. Yes, they came by horse, all kind of stuff. But do you think that China are gonna sit down and let the same thing happen where a caravan of ships left Europe? In order for you to come to China, you have to go down Africa, turn around Africa, and come around Asia. So they're gonna see they're gonna see 6,000 ships coming over. They're not gonna do anything. So you want me to be they're not gonna do anything? They got satellites, they got everything. They know you coming from them, but they're not gonna do anything.
So I mean, you asked a question, but I think you just answered your own question in your own way. So I don't need to. I don't need to comment. Really, it's just.
That's what I don't understand. I mean, people do they think we are stupid? I mean, I'm saying, and Putin,
yeah, I think they do. I think they think we're stupid.
And Putin in his speech, people don't pay attention to that. The speech he gave before he started the invasion, he told the United States, "You people like to intimidate people. And I'm telling you, you're not going to be able to intimidate me." You know what intimidate when a military person say you like to intimidate? So that means you don't want to fight. You just want to make noise. And this time, we're not going to, your projection is not going to work on us. We're not going to give up. And everything we do is intimidation. Because at the end of the day, people can sit down and say, they're not serious. He's not making sense. That's what I'm saying. We cannot use 6,000 ships. Europe cannot use the Suez Canal to go to Asia. Because if you do that, every one of the ships has to go one after one after one after one. Good luck. See how long it takes for 6,000 ships to go through the Suez Canal. It doesn't make no sense. No logic, nothing. And nobody on Sunday questions these people and say, "Wait a minute, sir, what do you mean by that? How are you gonna do that?"
I got to move on. I've got calls and stacking up here. But I think you've made a solid point. Thank you, Raphael. I appreciate your call very much. Okay. And here's Rob. Hello. And come on, computer. There you go. Now you're on. Hello, Rob.
Rick,
Hi.
how's it going, man? Permission to come aboard, sir.
Permission granted, sir.
Yeah. There's some nutty conversations going on nowadays about things.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes, sir.
There's always good, you really never know anything until somebody just comes along and drops it on you like a scoop of ice cream.
Yeah.
But, I hear this coming from a mile away. I heard rumors. I don't know if it's true or not, but it seems like Lazinski over there seems to think he may be able to slip some kind of rules through to make him president for the rest of his life, whatever good that's going to do. And there was also another rumor, so-called, that said that they were going to make it a law. If you talked bad about the government, you could be arrested. So that's some Lennon stuff going on there. But the true deal, reason I had some stuff on my mind, you know, and where I think we're at based on my profession. If people knew the big scheme of things that goes on, we got in 1700 on the world estimated population 600 million maybe. In 300 years, the population's grown 7 billion people. So what does anybody expect? And this union move really pisses me off. You know, we've got public paid money employees that says, hey, we're the big people, you know, all of a sudden. And it reflects back to some stuff about the Abraham Lincoln election back in America. He was a big union guy. He was a Republican. And he voted for those unions to give them power. But later on, here we are. It seems like these unions has come back to bite us in the ass. And oh, by the way, Mouth of the South, if he's listening, you tell him I'm pissed off at him.
Okay. I'm sure he's listening. You can tell him yourself.
I'm going to tell you something, boy. You're up there on a freaking jet ski, smiling your ass off, having a good damn time while all the rest of us working stiffs are out here with that image stuck in our mind. I haven't even been able to call in because of that. So shame on you for having a good time on a jet ski.
I'm sure that'll get his attention.
But I had a discussion with an older family relative. He was in the banking stuff for his whole life. He's 84 years old. If you're holding $1 in your hand in America right now, realistically, you're holding 38 cents. That's what it's worth. And the fact of the matter is we got people that's concerned about American forces and going to war with China and all of this good stuff going on. It makes me extremely nervous when we have elected officials rattling their swords, talking about mentioning nuclear weapons. And I'm one of these people that says, hey, wait a minute. We got a leadership with their hand on a suicide button, like a terrorist. You don't like us. We're just going to blow the fucking world up, and all of you poor saps are going to die with us. You know, they've got way out of hand. Now you've got public paid officials. If they work for the government, they're federal officials, whether they like it or not. We've got them standing out here saying, oh, we're just, you hit the nail so hard on the head. And Mouth of the South made an excellent point. When you go out and you protest, the truckers get together, the people get together, the working class people get together, and they put themselves out on a so-called strike over whatever, you know, Kool-Aid, whatever it is, then it goes a two-tier system, and that's so dangerous. It's very dangerous. And I don't want anybody in any country driving me and the people that I love over a cliff with some kind of nuclear talk. I don't want, I look towards Canadian people. There's only one flag in my mind that belongs in Canada that represents everybody in Canada. And that's that proud maple leaf. I don't think that anybody should come along and say, hey, we want our flag, we want our flag, we want our flag. I look at it like that flag and our American flag, that covers all flags. That covers us all. Anybody outside of that's outside of true justice, of being equal, to be recognized. But it's like some of these people are so desperately trying to become recognized, and maybe some people just think that it's not the time for some of that. You know, you know, it's just, it reminds me back. You can remember. I know you can, Rick. You and Mouth of the South. When I was young and in school, and you're standing there in the lunch line, and somebody just comes barreling ahead and just jumps the line, you know, that was the worst person in the world to me. And it seems like we got a lot of those kind of people just jumping the line, you know, no matter what the consequences, they're gonna either blow us up, you know. It's become a dictatorship, you know, in my opinion. When public employees and public people is supposed to how many of these parliament members that represent these people, how many of them go out here on the streets and stay there with those people, under protest with those people, to get their point across? You know, there's not hundreds of people with that leader out there representing them in the streets in protest. You know, I think that.
Listen, I got to move on. I've got other calls stacked up here, and the clock is ticking. Can I just get you to wrap up?
But you said, okay, I'll wrap it up. I'm gonna tell you and Mouth of the South. You tell Mouth of the South he's gonna need 3 jet skis and some alligator boots, and tie an alligator suitcase on the back of it. That way, because that's our way of saying to these things down here, don't come over here.
Okay.
So you or Mouth of the South are very welcome. You got my number. Mouth of the South can have my number. You want to come take a jet ski ride down through the bayous, you come on. Okay. And tell them don't be pissing me off with the pretty water and the pretty smile when we're working stiffs. Remember that. Rick, you have a good evening.
Thank
and then
you.
one little thing, if you can find out, does Taiwan have a space program? Because it's awful funny. If you look on Google Earth, right about facing the Chinese island, the Chinese continent,
they do have a space agency, yes.
Yeah. So there's a lot more at stake. There's a lot more at stake than some chips. Yeah. Well, you have a good evening. I appreciate you taking my time and hearing me, and just make sure, Mouth of the South, make sure he gets that point. Don't be having a good time in front of the rest of us. If we all can't be having a good time, then don't be showing it on. Don't be showing it. I don't want to see it.
All right. Thank you, sir. You have a great night. You. Okay, here's Jeremy. He's up next. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Hello, Rick.
How's it going, man?
No, not too bad. I'm actually not too terribly busy today, so I'm going to bug you for a little bit.
Okay.
So I sent you some emails every now and then. I don't know if you ever see them or not. But the latest one, I really think people, you want to help your family out, your Maverick family out, you need to help people understand what cultural Marxism is. And the first place you begin is understanding what is the Cultural Revolution. Because once you understand what the Cultural Revolution truly is, you won't be confused about all this gender diversity stuff. You'll know what it is, and you'll know what to do with it. Because it's not about tolerating innocent people, because I support people. I don't care who they are, as long as they don't try to brainwash kids. You understand the point of that? So when you start attempting to brainwash children, that's when I don't tolerate you. And nobody should. So I'd like you to take the time, please and thank you, and show people this video I'm going to tell you about. Can you do that for me, Rick?
I don't know. Maybe it depends on what the video is, what the content. I have no idea.
All right.
What is it?
It's a simple. It's about 8 minutes long. I'm not telling you to do it tonight, but I think it's important. But I'm going to tell you right now, it's a YouTube video. It's about 8 minutes long. It's called, the name of the video is called, What is the Cultural Revolution? What is the Cultural Revolution? And the channel is NT Dawn China.
Okay.
It's about 8 minutes long, and it is short, concise, and I witnessed this in my personal life with my child in his school, in his classroom, and it all ties together with the Mao model, which is only part of the New World Order tactics that are being used against us. The Mao model is only one component of that. And then, like you said a long time ago, Rick, and you were very correct about this, the Nazis are working with the communists. That is the most true thing I've heard in a long time that led me to understand a lot of these things. It's very true.
Yeah.
And the Cultural Revolution is happening right now, but it's a modern day with a completely different, political, the politics is different in some ways, but the politics is exactly the same in some ways. So you have the socialist, revolution. So obviously there's universal basic income being attempted to be brought in to be legislated law to allow people to be on a universal basic income, right? So that's socialism.
Yeah.
And then you have, lots of other things like that. So I don't want to take up too much of your time, but when it comes to brainwashing children, that is exactly what Mao did, along with other people like Hitler. But this is a very dangerous game being played, and people need to really understand it and take it seriously, because our youth, that's our future. And we need to be careful of that. So this video, super awesome, super informative, and I'm a pretty serious guy. I like to joke around, but I'm just trying to give people information.
Yeah.
I'll save the jokes for another day.
Okay.
But again, my rights don't end where your delusion begins. And I'm sorry, but I have a right to choose to be delusional or not. And on the basis that I have the right to my own beliefs, I will not conform to other people's beliefs on the basis that they want me to. They got to convince me that their ideas are good ideas, and maybe I'll go along with them.
Fair enough.
All right?
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Jeremy.
Have a good night, Rick.
You too, sir. You take care.
Adios.
Okay. And yeah, that was Jeremy. So, folks, you can donate at freedomreporters.com. freedomreporters.com. You can also donate at maverickdonations.com. Please consider subscribing, liking, sharing on YouTube and all the platforms that we're on. If you do subscribe, please hit the notification bell. Consider subscribing over on Rumble too, please. Please, please, please. Growing over there, so greatly appreciate the support that we're getting on that front. And it's been a great conversation here this evening. We're going to wrap things up. It is coming up on exactly 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On this, what is it, the 25th of April, 2023. I have to remind myself what the dates are because time always goes by so quickly. And yeah, we are living in a different time. Certainly does feel like a different time. I miss the before times. But before you know it, I'll be back tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, here on the Maverick News Channel. Thank you, Maverick family. Thank you. Catch you on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.